और ये मोबाइल नंबर, ठीक है। ये हिंदी मेरी हिंदी,
ये आपका लाइन नंबर है।
हाँ, ये हिंदी मेरा समझ में नाम क्या लिखा है। Brought him from here when I'm in our life.
101.
101. If you have one,
You got one? That coming to here. I was expecting a sort of wooded area, you know, like over there,
Yeah,
and water up to it.
yeah. I didn't expect it to be there after 20 days or whatever.
Well, if it had been something like that, you know, secluded,
You would have thought, like, even if he didn't move it, someone would have moved it.
bodies at the police, or the police know about, and we don't know about.
You need a piggyback?
no, no.
Fairly steep,
Come
isn't
on, Cali, 74 kilo. I don't know. What do you weigh?
Mine? About 80.
At your height, you can carry that. No problem.
Better get these guys to find them. They do this for a living. They're locals, they know the area and stuff. Really there. Right, Victor?
When you get your breath back, you ask some of these people if they're local, if they sighted a body.
ये लड़का इनका बेटा है। 3 महीने पहले ऋषिकेश आश्रम से गुम हो गए। आश्रम सुबह गुम के चले गए, अभी तक लापता है। तो बेचारा और इनका बड़ा बेटा, इनके 3 बच्चे हैं। ये लड़का सबसे छोटा है। भारत देखने के लिए आया था अपना बचपन का दोस्त को लेके। फिर 2 महीने बनारस, गोवा, मद्रास घूम के यहाँ पहुँचे। यहाँ आने के बाद पता नहीं क्या हो गया, विराट जैसा आश्रम से कागज सब पासपोर्ट सब छोड़ के कैसे चले गए, बगैर चले गए। तो ये जानना चाहते हैं। एक ये लड़का बोल रहा था, एक गोरे का शरीर उसको वो देखा था। क्या आप में कोई नीचे गए हो या आप ऐसा बदन को, गोरे शरीर को देखे हो? आप कुछ पता है, कुछ बता सकते हैं?
डेड बॉडी देखी नीचे? डेड बॉडी इधर तो कोई नहीं, इधर तो 3 महीने के अंदर में कुछ ऐसे नहीं। इधर
They have not seen any, but nobody particularly goes to look for dead bodies. You may be living on the banks of the Ganges without ever going in and touching this, because the guy makes a living. So it's in his interest to go and see and all that.
Okay.
ठीक है, thank you.
So are there other people like this guy that do the same thing that we can talk to?
There are 4 or 5 other guys. He's a gang leader.
Oh, cool.
तो अपने दोस्तों से कोई पता करके मुझे बता देना, ठीक है? हम चलते हैं। अच्छा विजय, ठीक है, तो तुम खबर लेके आना, पैसा दे देना।
It's the mix of places.
Obviously,
Sorry.
Just call us back. They're not made him last time proper address. So he went looking for a priest and he's the one who went for his wedding and all that. This is not him.
This is the man who went for the wedding.
Yes.
Ah.
But he's not
No,
the guy. He
he-
does not know you.
He was darker and older, not older.
वो शिव मंदिर का पुजारी जो है आप ही हो He says I am the priest of that temple. लेकिन ये कहते हैं जिनसे इनका मुलाकात हुई है वो आपसे हाइट में छोटे थे और जरा काले चमड़े के थे तो आपका असिस्टेंट तो नहीं हो
नहीं असिस्टेंट नहीं वहाँ एक हमारे रिलेशन में आए थे
हाँ हाँ
वो दाढ़ी दाढ़ी
Did he have a beard that priest?
I think so. I'm not sure. I think it was.
3 महीने पहले
Yeah, he was short.
हाँ।
He was short.
हाँ आपके रिश्तेदार
रिश्तेदार थे वो चले गए चित्रकूट
हाँ हाँ अच्छा तो he said that guy whom you met
Early September, and he fed. Well, we believed it was Ryan. He fed him and gave him a drink.
वो आपका रिश्तेदार जो है उनको कहा जब वो ये मंदिर वहाँ वो जगह जाके दूर बाप का दिल अपने बेटे की धड़कता है जो आपके शिव मंदिर में आए थे तो जयप्रकाश इंडस्ट्रीज का शिव मंदिर है तो ये सज्जन का मुलाकात आपके रिश्तेदार से हुई थी उन्होंने ये कहा कि ये लड़का मेरे पास आएगा और इसको खाना खिला मेरे काम तो फिर दोबारा आए 3 महीने के बाद सोच रहे कि कुछ समाचार मिला है क्या है पूछना चाहते हो
वो चित्रकूट चले गए
यहाँ कुछ दिन के लिए आए थे आपके पास अच्छा so that guy was not the priest of the temple he is the priest of the temple that guy is a relative of this gentleman
Is it what?
relative
Oh, yes, right.
so he was here for a few days and then he went back to his place ठीक है जी थैंक यू धन्यवाद okay this guy says I need to hire 3-4 other guys and take them around can I please have 2 more hundred rupees he's asking and by this evening he'll give you the information
Come on. Yeah, I mean,
when is the foreign minister coming so then reading the newspaper he's the foreign minister now oh Mangala has become the foreign minister yeah I know okay great okay
राम झूला
I am in a place called Rishikesh near Dehradun. I have not in Delhi right now. I'm getting back only on Tuesday. That is the day after tomorrow. If he's in town, I'd love to say hello to him. Tuesday, I should be back in Delhi around maybe 2 o'clock or something. Yeah, as soon as I get there, I can dump my luggage at home and get into my car and drive. Where is he staying? Why don't I do like that? As soon as I get to Delhi, I'll give you a call and then I'll go somewhere. Yeah.
So this is a mantra. This is kirtan. So you don't need to applaud because this is a kirtan, and these are mantras. Do you know what mantra is? Okay. So we could speak them with our tongues. And where did they hear the vibrations? Actually, they heard them inside themselves. So it means that the rishis, on our behalf, they translated vibrations, energies that we have inside ourselves into something that we could easily and quickly perceive. And then they could teach them easily from one to the other. And in Sanskrit, they're called nam. And nam is usually translated in English into name, which is a misconception because when we say name, we think that there's a thing and then it got a name. But it's the other way around. First there was the nam, there was project was started, or any happy moment, occasion, that first of all Ganesha would be praised. So we'll just do that for a minute too. We haven't started yet. We're still working on it. This is all the introduction. Ekadantaya vidmahe Vakratundaya dhimani Tano nandi prachodayat Vakratunda mahakeya Surya Koti Samapravam Nirvagyanam Kurume Deva Sarvada Kirishu Sarvada Shuklam Badaram Vishnu Sasivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasana Vanaram Dayai Sarva Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha Deva. 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 Mata Janki Parvati, Pita Mahadeva. Mata Janki Parvati, Pita Mahadeva. Pita Mahadeva, Pita Mahadeva. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha Deva. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha Deva. Ladua ka bhog lage, sant kare seva. Ladua ka bhog lage, sant kare seva. Sant kare seva, sant kare seva. Oh, when you're down and feeling blue, you've seen the enemy and it looks just like you. You're looking out and on in at the zoo. I know just what you should do. Down on your knees, it's time to pray. Now's good, today's the day. It's so hard sometimes, but hey, I know just what you should say. Oh, when you're down and feeling blue, you see the enemy and it looks just like you. You're looking out and not in at the zoo. I know just what you should do. Down on your knees, it's time to pray. Now's good, today's the day. It's so hard sometimes, but hey, I know just Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. When you're down and feeling blue, you've seen the enemy and it looks just like you. You're looking out and not in at the zoo. I know just what you should do. It's so hard sometimes, but hey, I know just what you should say. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. should say Hari Om Namah Shivaya, 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 Hari Om. I have a lot of fun there because there's 200 people sitting there, and they're very experienced on kirtans, and a lot of different kirtan people will be there. Beautiful kirtan singers, so I get to also listen to them.
So what is that going on?
That's arti, when they wave the lights in front of the murtis.
Yeah.
And the ring, you make as much noise as you can
Okay.
to celebrate another day with the murtis and
Does
the
that happen
temple.
every night?
And now we're going to put them to bed, and we're going to miss them. So
Yeah.
This place is steeped so much in Indian mythology, culture, everything here, The names of the hotels, Ganga Putra, Ganga Kinare, Ganga this, Har Mahadev. The whole place resounds with those.
this Rishikesh is very, very, very dedicated and aware of Gangaji. All people here, more than Hardwar, they really revere the Ganga. And they really worship Ganga. Our ghat here, hundreds of people in the morning, 4 in the morning, even the coldest day, coming down to take a bath in Ganga. I hear the bells ringing. So, whole of Rishikesh is really very dedicated to Gangaji. Yeah, early in the morning. And I'm still in my bed, and they're out bathing in Ganga.
You're waking up with this nice music sound.
Wonderful. I'm very, very, very blessed and lucky person. Very lucky person.
Thank you very much for that. That was
Thank you for
fantastic.
coming.
No worries.
And,
No, such a
let
pleasure.
us
And
wish that. Let's hope that Ryan gives you a call one day.
That would be fantastic.
He might.
Which one?
that's
Swami.
Jock. Chappie who took us to the temple this morning. In her absence.
Oh yes, yes. He was going to give us an estimate or something.
And
Yes,
if you like to,
No, he's going to.
I wanted to tell you also, I forgot because we did kirtan. But if you'd like, if it comes in your mind, you'd like to have some search continued, so it's sort of, always going on and that. And you'd like to have it done by a private person. So that I brought that man especially because he's very expert in it. He's been searching for foreigners and had some luck also, some success. So he has a good idea what to do. And his contacts are fantastic. And the way you want them on the ground level.
Yeah.
There's really, you got a lot of publicity, which was very good. So you got the photos out there by meeting the big people. But really we find that, when you find the person, it's very simple. They're in a very simple place with very simple people. I mean, they're not sitting in they're just there,
Well, it's just been chance meetings,
Yeah,
just getting different
just meetings.
lines of
So
inquiry.
what we find is that, really, I find Jaipal working really
Yep.
closely on the ground level with very, very, very local police friends, who are on the beat and stuff like that. So this is where,
Yeah, he did
this is
discuss
where
that
they
this
show up.
morning briefly, but he had to rush off and he was going to
yeah, he was
organise an
telling,
estimate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we said, except that we saw him with you, we didn't know a lot about him. Before we said anything,
well, the
I
Canadian
suggested
Embassy, it
Jock,
works with him also,
it
so,
does, okay.
yeah.
Is it okay to kind of give this responsibility to this boy? and
It
he's in mind
is,
to
very
help-
much so.
help them?
He's a close devotee of mine, so I'll be, on his back as well.
Yep.
But he's a very responsible person. you know, he's Pradhan of Barwala, has 21 villages under him. I mean, he's a proper person. He is not only proper person, but excellent person to have for you. Excellent.
He has not given any indication about what kind of monetary involvement.
Okay.
Would be,
So we'll ask him to do.
He
Well,
said he was going to
what
do an
what
estimate.
what we'd like to hear from you is what would you like?
Yeah,
What do you picture in your mind?
You want his son back, period. I mean, so
No, but no. But I mean, in the way of a search, like, would you just like him to just quietly plug on, or you want him to have staff, or you want a huge thing? I mean, you know, for one person, he hired 25 military people, and they had a helicopter. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
You have to show. I think the first thing from your side is to sort of indicate to us what you'd like to be happening here, and for how long. You know, I mean, what do you picture?
Well, the lines of inquiry we've got are Chilumbubbers, and that's really just conjecture because we've got no idea. But one thing that seemed to be, again, it may be just a false alarm, but that Swami at the ashram near Dinan, what was it?
next to Dayananda Ashram.
He said in August at 9 a.m. in the morning he saw a body, a white-skinned body, being rushed down the Ganges about 9 a.m. and Ryan left at 5 a.m. He doesn't know when in August, but he said he was meditating and his mind has gone back now and he believes it was in August. So
And he thinks it looked like him.
he doesn't know his face.
It's a white
I
body.
didn't report
But he had just had
Oh,
knickers
Didn't
on.
report it
Oh,
because he was meditating.
He just had
Yeah.
knickers on,
no.
in his words. So I don't know whether he means shorts or undies or what.
August.
So,
that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know,
And the
did you
barrages
go
were
down
open.
did you go down to the catchment
barrage,
part
yeah,
by
the barrage,
BHEL
the
beyond Hardware? And every
going
day
down
they
there.
open a cage.
No,
I've
they
looked
gave
for
us-
bodies there.
We mentioned it to the DIG. He said he'll have.
Well, that's the one thing we could do for you right away is we could go there, bring the photo and the people that work there, and see if that rings any bells with them, or indeed if it's still lying there, you know. But it'll be very rotted by now. But you know, there's a place where all bodies end up, and every day at 5 o'clock the big horns go off and they lift up this cage, and there's always not human bodies, but there's always bodies and horses and donkeys, and very often human bodies. And I went there every day for a week. Waiting for, you know, a body, so we could go and show that.
yeah.
And you know, I believe they photograph all the bodies that come up, and they have them on the
is that-
wall
I
in the
asked
place.
Meena about an unidentified. Does he control Haridwar? Was that out of his jurisdiction?
No,
or something?
It's a funny place. It's a funny
Well,
place.
I asked
you
him,
know.
and I've been asking, what about unidentified bodies? And I've asked about. I did hear last time that it would go to Haridwar, anybody, right? And I was assured it was checked. And
Well,
I'm not quite so
but
sure.
maybe it was. But you know, if you
I'm
want
not
to be
quite so
sure,
sure.
we'll do it. I mean, he'll
Yeah,
do
I
it.
think
And
better off,
and I, you know,
yeah.
this was many years ago. I was looking for actually a servant of mine that disappeared, and I believe they do photograph, and they have millions of photographs on the wall there.
So would they
of
even
all
be
the bodies.
caught? Because yesterday when we were looking, we were told that when this was flooding, they lift all the gates up just to let the water out. So
Right.
would they even be caught in that sort of
They
situation?
would
or
be caught
they,
in that
they keep
because
going
there's a
straight
little
out?
there's a little flow off. There's a little flow off,
Yeah.
At Haridwar.
especially for that, for
Right.
bodies, you know.
Okay.
And there's a little flow off, and it goes on this little canal. It's in a
Yeah.
very weird place, in the middle of nowhere, and it's right by BHEL. You have to get to it through BHEL. You have to go through the BHEL campus, and there's a little road, and lo and behold, there it is. And lo and behold, they lift up bodies every day in a cage, and they find live bodies too. They still. I went there every day, so I was chatting with them for a week, you know, and waiting for the alarm to go off and this cage go up. And they told us
What is
stories
it
of
called,
finding
this
live people.
this area?
Well, you see, I don't remember anymore. All I know is it's in behind BHEL. It's the cage where they catch big things in the Ganges, you know. It's like a runoff, and it goes in this canal. And you know, many years have gone by, and they've made some sort of canals there, haven't
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
there's
I
a
don't
power
know, you
irrigation,
know.
these things.
But I think the canals they've made are after this. 'Cause this is
What?
right at
I
BHEL.
said, "Well, should we do it as well as, before we go to make?" And Aaron said that he doesn't know if he wants to, which I can understand.
No, I think if you could get Chauhan
I'll
on
get
board,
Chauhan
I
to do it,
think,
and I don't want to do
he
it either.
comes up with a reasonable proposition
nightmare.
and say okay, you know, X number of weeks and Y number of people would be
Is
involved.
that what
and,
you picture?
Z
That you'd
amount
like
of-
this to go on for a month,
I'd-
sort
well,
of
that's-
thing?
I'd say, but
So
that
that
would be
he's
the
chipping
first.
away at it. I mean, he can't do it absolutely 24 hours a day, every day
No.
either. So he'd keep a record of what he'd
But
done.
that's the main thing at this stage. The line of inquiry is after that possible sighting, body sighting.
We'd like to
Yeah.
rule that out if we
We'd
can.
like to
Okay.
eliminate that, and
Okay.
then we could look at chillimbubbers because it's really we just don't know. But if we've got something to eliminate,
Well,
now,
that's what he's saying, that he has a good way to do that. So,
Yeah. that's-
And you know, another thing is to sit in with the Chillimbabas and tell them that there's going to be reward in it for turning him in, because you know they're a group. They'll protect him and take care of him. That's what I'm saying. I feel in my heart he's okay, you know, because if he's run away with them or he's teamed up with
if
them,
he has, yeah.
he'll be fine. Yeah.
If he has. Yeah.
If he has.
Well, there's a 1 lakh reward there for anyone who returns him
Oh,
safe.
I see.
So
Okay.
Yeah, 100,000 rupees.
Okay, so we could put
can
that
definitely
out
put
to the
that out.
Babas,
Yeah,
which
that's
might,
on the
might
poster.
impress
Yeah.
them a lot.
Yes.
So,
So I mean,
we the
let
first thing is to
Chauhan also
eliminate-
spread the message.
yeah, yeah.
the
okay.
first thing is to eliminate
Ganges.
the
That,
Ganges.
okay. He might do that tomorrow since he's here. He doesn't live in Rishikesh. He's just
Right.
visiting me, so he might go down there tomorrow and do it. I don't know.
That'd be
He says he
fantastic.
knows where that is.
Okay.
So
Could you-
it's a very specific place. I'm really surprised that they didn't ask you to go there. But anyway, but you know, they told you they checked it out, and maybe they did too. You
Well,
know,
this was the
that's
consular
possible
officer.
too.
Do you remember an incident at the end of September? There was a Melbourne woman who was swept away at Rishikesh, and tourists saw her bump her head. It was in the Australian papers, and she ended up 50 kilometres down somewhere.
Alive.
No, dead.
Oh no, dead. That's
And her mother was complaining in the Australian papers how the High Commission didn't help her. She had to cremate her own daughter on the banks of the Ganges, and the police didn't help. But I asked the consular officer then. He was involved. I said, "Well, what else did you find?" And he said, "Nothing. They drained the barrage somehow, and all
yeah,
they
they
found
can
was
do that. They can shut one of the
Right.
barrages, and the water stops behind it.
and all they
It's
found.
very late to do that now.
All they found was an Indian national.
Uh-huh.
But no one's been talking about this cage thing at Haradwar.
Yeah.
Although I think it was mentioned last time.
The thing is, nothing is static. We are
Yeah, you know,
assuming that,
sir. There's
goes
another
on.
point. You can't really blame anybody because you know, even nobody can just think of everything all at
Sure.
once. You know, it
Yeah.
keeps going
It's
on
not
and
blame,
on
it's
and
just
on and on.
frustration, I guess.
It's a living thing, yeah. So you know, people will remember things and remember things and remember things. So you know, if it keeps going on, then it's good. You know.
Yeah. Well, like the Swami, he didn't report it and he'd forgotten about it basically, but he said, now it's coming back into
Yeah.
my mind, you know,
Yeah.
and that's why I asked, what time did he leave?
And his
yeah,
friend knew, huh? They left at 5.
Yes, we knew it was 5 o'clock as soon as the ashram opened, but he specifically wanted to know what time he left because he reckoned
And
it
of
was
course,
between
you
9
must
and 10.
have talked to his friend a lot.
Yeah.
So you just couldn't get any clue of what he intended to
It,
do.
it's, no, it's...
He never mentioned, I want to go
no.
to Benares,
Oh, no,
I want to
no.
go here, I want to go there.
Nothing at all.
Jock, I think we should tell her two versions we got from the temple when Chauhan took us there.
Well, yes, I got the
You-
the
you got
lowdown.
that. Oh,
yeah.
okay, you got the lowdown.
Basically, they were all scared to heck. You know,
Yes,
that's what I told you. I knew that would
Because the
happen.
pujari
But
said,
you know, I
that
went
guy
to-
gave me 51 rupees and he was with the girl.
No,
and
they were
know
really,
nothing
really,
about
really scared. They were really scared this morning. I knew that would happen. And I went this morning at 8 o'clock. He was still asleep. And unfortunately, at 9 o'clock, I just was busy. So,
I thought Joanne was going in by himself, but he said, come in.
yeah,
So we went in.
that's true. So,
No, perhaps
Yeah.
on the family's behalf, you could communicate to Chauhan
Okay.
that
okay. And I'm a bit, I
Jock
keep,
and
I'm
Vishnu,
on my
we'd
email
appreciate
every day so we can keep in great touch through
why don't
email.
we do it that
Oh, you
way?
got your
actually?
email?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Well, you've got our email.
A card in it. The card in it.
You know that yesterday we
Huh? Oh, Mr. Yeshua.
yesterday we gave you a
Right. So I have
and
the,
that is
I have
Jock's mobile number, email
everything,
address,
yeah.
since
I
when
have-
is missing, all those details are there.
Yep.
If you could give your connection, email and mobile we already have. So Chauhan, you could keep an eye under your jurisdiction.
Yes.
If you have-
That's what, he's a devotee of mine, so he comes often and we sit and talk about it.
So that's why we thought.
Okay.
first
But
we come
actually,
in.
he's
Let's
he's
take
more
you into
knowledgeable than me. He
get it when we
really,
come there.
he's really surprises me.
Yeah, but
he knows so many
the
people.
point is, he can connect with you.
Yes.
So when
It's
the
true.
stranger
Johan
comes
cannot
and-
type English email, so it will be
yeah,
needed
you had
only
a
giving him
problem
notice.
communicating in the English language. So
Yeah.
we reckon we roped you in or sought your assistance or took you into confidence and hey, could we do this and all that.
So one thing is that he's asking me is that would the Australian embassy be willing to issue any letter for him?
If you request, I'm
sure
sure
if we
they
request
could
This
do
is
that.
this is
definitely request it.
enormously helpful for him.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't just says that Mr. Johan is working on the behalf of so and so Australian national and is in our knowledge. You know, we are in
Yep,
the knowledge
yep,
of this.
yep,
That's plenty, and that opens every door for him.
Mataji, what we said was, he said he has a similar letter from the Canadian High Commission.
He does, yeah.
I said, if you just email the text of that letter.
Well, the
To,
Canadian High
Jock.
Commission is much more specific because we knew exactly
No,
who
no,
we needed
it's
to
a
see.
general power of attorney or whatever it is. You
No,
understand?
just a simple letter.
Simple letter.
You know, as soon as they see the letterhead of the commission, it's over.
That's right.
That's
They-
all they need. It's not doesn't say anything, as a matter of fact.
So what
It
should
say
it
Jack
say?
and Jill went up the hill.
What
But
what should it say?
commission-
That
I think
can-
it should just say that we are in cognition that Mr. Jaipal Chauhan, and I'll send you an email, put his name
Yeah,
for it,
you know.
is working on behalf of Australian National, your name, and we are in knowledge of this, full knowledge of this, and we are prepared to cooperate fully with him.
Any
general
help given
one.
to him will be
And then
appreciated.
if he needs
huh?
some sort of specific one, if there's somebody specifically he needs to meet and he can't with that letter, but I don't think that'll happen, then the ones I have from the Canadian Embassy are very specific because he was being sent to meet certain people. So that's not the same.
Right.
So if they just do that,
We can ask that.
then that's very helpful for him
Yeah,
in
I
many, many
understand.
ways. So
for sure.
And what kind of monetary?
let's
this
ask
thing is-
him and
yeah,
let's see. And what are you thinking? You want it to be done around Rishikesh?
You
I
haven't-
really don't know.
You haven't thought it out.
You have to sort of
frankly,
kind
you
of
know.
tell me what
Yeah,
you're sort of
sure,
got in your
sure,
mind,
that's
because
fair.
naturally, I mean, if you say, okay, I want him to go up to Badrinath, it's very
Sure,
different than being
sure.
in locally in Rishikesh. I mean, monetarily for
Yep.
him. I'll get him to do that then.
Yeah, if you
I'll
could do that,
translate.
that'd be
He'll
great.
tell me. I'll
Yeah.
translate it in English, and I'll just type it to you.
Is he around? Or you will.
He might be around. He might not. I had another
So, but
VIP
no-
visiting me today, and he dropped him at our
But
place.
you have email connectivity. So
Absolute
even if you're
email
not there, then
connectivity. I
that
check my
everything will
emails
work out.
every day. Are you also on email a
Yeah,
lot?
every day.
And even more now, I guess. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be fine doing
Yep.
it by email.
I
It's
check
great.
home one from
And if
work
we
and-
occasionally have to phone each other, we can do it. But
Yep.
we can send photos by email. We
Yep.
can email like crazy.
We'll
So.
give you everything you need.
Okay, I think we should work out fine.
I reckon.
We worked with another family for a year, just fine by email.
Excellent.
Thank
He
you very
even, scanned some documents and sent them to us by email. So
Yes,
One-
we
one
can do
other
anything
thing.
like that.
The Chaturvedi, the connectivity,
the who?
Chaturvedi, not Sharma,
Uh-huh.
who brought somebody from Gangotri to here and put him.
Oh
with
yes,
that. He's a Brazilian bloke.
he's a Brazilian.
He's a brought.
The one he
Oh,
brought.
He's a
oh,
Brazilian,
oh,
so
oh.
it doesn't make sense.
Oh,
I
okay,
mean,
okay, okay,
bothering him, right?
Okay,
So,
right,
you
right.
know,
Okay, okay. You found
because-
that out, eh?
yeah, we
So
found
we
it.
cleared that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
A Brazilian speaks Portuguese, not
So the
English.
two things that we would do in the next day or two is, I'm going to go to that place that I told you about. I have to look for it, and I'm going to send Johan to do it, because it's a very seedy place.
Sure.
And also I'm going to send him to that cage place. So that right away would be something that he could do for you,
Okay, thank
and
you
maybe
very
even
much.
find out before you leave Delhi.
Yep,
So
yep.
email you in
Excellent.
Delhi.
So in other words, he is handing over the case to you.
Well, at least that much we'll do,
Yep.
and he'll send you a bill for
Yep,
doing that. I
absolutely.
mean, that's going to happen, eh?
Yeah.
Without a
Work
letter
out what
from
we
the
wanna do
embassy or
after that.
anything else like that. And then over and above that, he'll propose something to you.
Yep.
And I don't want to do it for him because he's more knowledgeable than me.
Yep,
Believe
yep,
me.
Sure.
So I mean, I hire him to
Yep.
to look for Canadians. So
Yep, excellent.
there's more Canadians than Australians out there.
Yeah.
Canadians are very naughty.
They are.
They're deep into drugs in Manali.
And Israelis too.
Yeah, but not so much in the drugs, they buy them. Very much ashamed to tell you that there's a lot of Canadians involved. And I went up and saw their mansions. It's true. Even like kings.
Thanks, sir.
It won't be a miracle. I think it'll just be its natural course that all of a sudden he'll need that old ATM card. Better phone mum. of find me. Let's hope for that.
Yep.
A little bit of
That's
happy
right. That's right.
story, a little fling with the Babas, and then get
Realise it's
cold
not what he
or-
wants.
yeah.
That's right. Cool. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How do
you.
you on? How do you on?
Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm just going
Okay.
Yeah, what do we got?
You are explaining me.
Oh, you don't speak English?
Little bit, I also not little bit. Yeah.
Talking to Ma Chetan,
Jyoti. Yeah. Chetan Jyoti.
Chetan Jyoti. We were talking about having the cage checked at Haradwar first up. The cage where bodies go down the Ganges,
Yeah.
and there's a cage at Haradwar which is lifts them up every day. It's checked for bodies, could be animals, people.
Yeah, yeah.
and
Barrage. Yeah, yeah, in the barrage.
at Haradwar.
Yeah. Haridwar and Bhadrabad and Rishikesh. 3 barrages.
Sure, but
Apparently there's one in near Haridwar that goes off to the side, and they catch a lot of bodies there.
have a
That
cage.
she said.
ऐसे कोई जगह है जहाँ डेड बॉडी को पकड़ते हैं या
हाँ.
कौन सी जगह है?
Bhadrabad.
At
One place is in Bhadrabad where the
Yeah,
dead body.
past BHEL.
BHL. Near of the BHL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This place name is Bhadrabad.
Okay.
All right, okay. Yep. And what was the other thing? I think Chetan Jyoti was
Going to go to that evil place.
go to the evil place where the
Chilam
Chilambabbas are and check that out.
She spoke about a
कहाँ गया होगा इनका साथ
place
में?
that's not very nice.
What?
She's speaking about a place, I don't know what it's called, where Chilambabbas hang out. She said it's not a very nice place, and women, swamis usually don't go there, but she's going to go there and talk to the Chilambabbas there. I'm not sure where that place is. I don't know if...
The Shampur, she say one place Shampur. She say one Chilam Baba live there and many foreigners live with him.
Many ashram in Chilam Baba. Actually, it's Haridwar, Rishikesh, and Uttarkashi. 400 Chilam Babas.
Right.
Okay.
Minimum. Minimum. Though his search one by one, by foot. First time search is Chilam Baba, all ashrams, and after then hospitals, government hospitals.
Yep.
Anytime injured, accident, castle, or third time is go to jail,
Yep.
search.
Right.
Prison and jail where the
And ashrams.
Yep.
Reverse search, you go to Shisham Jari to Bhadrabad.
Have you spoken to Ma Chetan Jyoti tonight?
Yes.
This evening? Yep.
After then you come.
Yep. We were talking first up 2 things, as we mentioned, the cage, BHL. There was one particular place where the Chilambabbas are that she was talking about, and it was mentioned that could be done tomorrow or the next day, next 1 or 2 days, and then she was going to send email to me with a plan on what to do from there, such as Chilambabbas at Uttarkashi and so on, jail, I guess, and hospitals. She was going to put that on email
every day.
with just with a plan
With the plan.
and the estimate of cost. Right, she was going to get that from you, translate to English, and send it to me.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So if we can talk right here and now about costs for the BHL, whatever that place was called,
Badanamal.
Yeah, that's it. And the one particular
Chilambaba.
Chilambaba that
Yeah.
Mark Chet and Georgie was
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
Shampur में बता रहे थे.
How much for you to check them out?
Only for those places. All Chilam
To start
Babas.
with, right?
No,
That's it.
only for Veras,
Yeah.
check them.
Yeah.
Only for Chilam Baba. One Chilam Babas.
This one particular place that.
Yeah.
Cheers, man. Thanks. Just to start off with, I imagine that it's yeah, we're rolling.
No red light.
I've covered it up, Jock.
You're very observant.
Why?
No, when we were doing the stuff.
Especially when you've got it up against a window and you see the red light.
You can see it all the time. which is
Gotcha.
okay, so there we go.
And it's very annoying. So you can see it making it.
Cover it up.
But I guess it's been quite a week. I guess if you had to look at it in an overall sort of fashion, I'll go through things sort of separately, but overall, how's it been thus far?
Well, it's been another one of those roller coaster weeks with highs and lows and hopes raised and then dashed again, and that's been I guess, this whole story, this whole journey the last 3 months. Although we haven't had any definite leads, just possibilities, and yeah, it's pretty tough at times.
Mate, yourself at the present moment, I guess it's starting to come to an end, this journey. How are you feeling within yourself, and do you feel that it's been a success? What's worked well for you? What hasn't worked? Has there been any things that have disappointed you? Have there been anything that you've been really pleased with? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this trip is certainly coming to an end, but I don't know that the journey itself is. And before I left Australia this time, I said to Diane, well, I'm going back to find him, and she said, well, you may be in for a rude awakening or gross disappointment if you take that thinking. She said, why don't you concentrate on doing everything that you can to raise the awareness and saturate the area or the whole state basically, so that people are aware of Ryan being missing. I think we've been, I hope we've been hugely successful in that. Firstly with Coca-Cola and distributing 2,000 posters, and we've seen them around. And then State Bank of India, haven't seen any there, but they agreed to help. But Himalaya Torchbearers, Ryder Cheshire Foundation agreed to help. Rotary International agreed to help, and they introduced me to the governor of the state. Aaron and I met with the governor and 5 Rotarians, and we asked if he'd set up a special investigations team, as the police haven't been able to come up with anything after 3 months. That would mean police officers full time working on this case, and while he didn't actually give a commitment at that time, he did ring the Deputy Inspector General. No, that's not right. I think it might be Deputy Inspector General Meena in Dehradun while we were there, and said he wanted to be kept personally informed on this case. He's a Rotarian himself, so that helped an enormous amount. But people that we've met have been so helpful. Even a man called Goldie Jacobs came up to me in the street. I guess these T-shirts have been the best thing that we've had, with the missing poster on them, or the reward poster, and he's a president of some government organisation, and he said, if there's anything I can do, please ring. And I have done that. I asked him, I told him I'd met with Excellency the Governor and told him about the request I gave the Governor, and he said, I'm onto it. Rest assured I'll be doing my best to help you. But people in the street, at least the people who could least afford it, wouldn't even take money from us for food, and we needed stationery for different things to put posters up. Just wouldn't take money for it. We had to insist and put it in their hands because they just wanted to help. It seems as the whole state or the whole areas that we've covered are behind this quest, if not the whole of India. I know it's gone on national TV as well. And the press conference we had, that blew my mind. A number of representatives from the media, the newspapers as well as TV. And then to have India's Channel 7 following us around the country to do a half-hour show, that was, I could only see the benefit in that, increased awareness again. So that being the objective, as Diane suggested, well, I believe that's been a great success.
Terrific, mate. So I'm just going to take you back through a few events of the week, and I was, hoping you'd be able to talk to me about them. And I guess maybe we'll just start right from the first day.
Could I remember?
Yeah, I'll try and prompt you.
Yep.
The first, I guess, bit of news was, finding the people who were with Ryan on the last night that he was, the last night he was in the ashram. Can you tell us about, what happened surrounding all of that? What did you learn? And, basically, who was he with? What did they say? And, what was their take on it all?
Yeah. On the first day when we went down to Swag Ashram, first thing I wanted to do was catch up with the barbers who had been friendly in that area, and we met an Australian, but he must have been Indian background. He'd been in India this time for 3 years, and he mentioned there was a young girl at the ashram, the Vednikatan, who was with Ryan the night before he disappeared, and he suggested to her that he knew we were in town somehow, obviously the publicity, and suggested that she might want to talk to us. So we made arrangements to see her. We also caught up with some other people. But and there was a chap with Ryan the night before as well called Michael. He's an Australian guy. So anyway, at the Vednikatan, we spoke to Nadia. She was from Sweden. And she was at the ashram when I was here last time. And thinking back, I believe I had said good day to her, or just acknowledged her in passing, because I stayed at the ashram as well. But nothing was ever said at that time about Nadia speaking to Ryan. And it was an incredible story. She mentioned that John, his friend, and Ryan kept to themselves fairly well. And they didn't speak at all until that last night. And she heard a noise, or it was late at night after the ashram had been closed, and there was screaming, and obviously Ryan was disturbed about something. His behaviour was most unusual, and Michael and Nadia tried to calm him down, and he was talking philosophy and other things that they didn't really understand. Even though Michael was a counsellor, he said that even though he was a counsellor, he was a bit regretful that he didn't speak to Ryan along those lines, but they just kept telling him to go to bed, and they thought he had. They went to bed about 1 a.m, I think. They thought he'd gone to bed, but obviously he didn't sleep, from what we gather now. But it was interesting to get that further information, and we just didn't know about that before. No one had ever mentioned that they had been with Ryan. So they must have been the last people that actually talked to him, and I guess the security guy at the ashram would have been the last one to see him before he took off.
When they were telling you these things about his behaviour and stuff like that. Mate, how were you? What were your thoughts when you were hearing this sort of stuff? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, my thoughts when I heard what had happened and how he was behaving was certainly a shock, but it fitted in with what we had heard afterwards. It fitted in about him not sleeping for 3 nights. And Michael believed that was his whole problem, but I believe personally, and I'm not a counsellor of course, I believe personally that something caused that sleep deprivation. The deprivation of sleep didn't cause him to leave. But we don't know what it was. That's the mystery. And we won't know until we find him. If we ever know. He mightn't be able to tell us. But it fits in also with what he was saying to his mother the night before.
Mate, we'll move on a little bit because there's so much to cover, so much has happened this week. You know, again, the first sighting, in inverted commas, from a taxi driver. Can you talk to us about that? What happened, and take us through that journey?
A taxi driver indicated to us that he had seen Ryan, or certainly someone who looked like Ryan, on about the 6th or 7th of October, 6 weeks ago, up at Gungatree, which is 290 kilometres north of Rishikesh, 10,000 feet up the Himalayas. And he mentioned that this particular person had parked a motorbike and then walked up towards the temple. And the next day the motorbike was still there. And he had asked his passengers, who spoke English, to ask this person if he's okay, because normally people go up the mountain in groups. And the particular person said, no, I know my way around, that's okay. He strongly believed that it was Ryan in the picture on the posters. I thought it was a very slim chance. Well, for one reason, I couldn't understand how to get a motorbike when he's got no ID and no money. But then again, the policeman at Mina suggested there's very wealthy ashrams and they can look after people, and if they've got motorbikes, they could use them. Certainly I couldn't imagine Ryan riding a motorbike from Rishikesh to Gungatree, but it may have been available up there. And after seeing the roads, when we went up there, I was even more of that mind. But as in the last trip, when we tried to get the American special group in and we weren't able to because of lack of visas, I wanted to make sure that we covered every base so that when I go back to Australia, if I haven't found him, I could say quite clearly that I'd done everything in my to do to find my son. So we went to Gungatree, and that was an amazing journey. We thought we might have to take 3 days. Go up one day, look around the next, and come back the third day. Well, we headed off in a small convoy, and Channel 7 India was following us, and we went up through Uttarkashi and windy roads all the way. We were in an Ambassador, which is, I guess, like a Hillman Hunter. I think that's the closest you could describe it. Bald tyres at the rear. Fortunately, it was dry roads. And to go up these mountains with 1,000-foot drops, no fencing, and just relying on a driver who, he wasn't the best driver. I did say to Aaron at one stage, well, perhaps we better go in separate cars just in case. But I breathed a sigh of relief. In some areas where there were pine trees, well, they appeared to be pine trees, at least stop a car going down too far. But incredible, the place we stayed at the first night, it took a long while to get there. At one stage we were travelling 20 kilometres an hour. The last 40 kilometres took 2 hours to get to the place where we stayed overnight. That place had no heating, no hot water. It was bitterly cold, -3 in the morning, I believe, and the water was frozen in the pipes. But we had rugged up, and the following morning we went to Gungatree, and it was like a ghost town. Most of the people had left because of the snow coming. It was expected every day. But we did speak to some Babas there, and a Russian chap who'd been there for 3 years, and he confirmed that no one like Ryan was in Gungatree at the time. And we don't know whether he was there before, but I would suggest he wasn't. And after seeing the condition of the roads, I was convinced that no way would he have ridden a motorbike there. That's not to say he can't ride one, but it would just be too difficult if he was able to get a motorbike. So we came back down the mountains, and that was a little bit quicker because the ambassador could coast fairly well. And we got almost right back to Rishikesh, and the car broke down, but fortunately we got it started again and got back to town after dark. But I guess the scariest bit was going around the mountains on the way up after dark. That was pretty scary, and I don't know if it's the driver or the car, but one time Aaron and I had to get out and push up the hill and then let the car continue up the hill, and we had to walk up. So it was interesting. But to see those mountains and the snow on the peaks of the mountains, that's something I'll never forget. It's just an incredible sight, unbelievable. And Gungatree, I can see the reason for the attraction. In warmer weather, but everything shuts in winter. Only a few people stay there to look after it. It's incredible.
Can you describe how you were feeling when you were going through and you saw it as a ghost town?
Well, it confirmed my suspicions that straight away I just thought, Ryan hasn't come here. He wouldn't be here now in the cold. And there was just no one around. And yeah, anyway, but it was one of those things we had to check out. I mean, we've had so few leads that, this was one of the things we had to check out. But we came back in 2 days. We were fortunate there. We didn't have to spend a whole day looking around because there was really nothing to look at. Once we got the confirmation from the Russian chap, we were able to turn around and come back.
The next day, you started going around some of the ashrams here, and
Yep.
I guess again there were a mixture of results. Can you tell us about some of that and what's resulted from them?
I wouldn't say it was a good day. Going around the ashrams on this side of the side opposite Swag Ashram where I last trip. And that was an area that I don't believe had been covered by the police. I just couldn't get any confirmation. I wanted to cover that because it was opposite where we believe Ryan had been seen at the Forester's Temple. And we called, or the first ashram we called on was called Dinan something, and walked in there, and chap said, yeah, I got your email, and I sent an answer back, and which he had. I didn't realise it was the same one. I had no idea until he said that. But then I went into the next one, and the Swami was lying down on a bed. He wasn't well, but there was another chap who spoke real good English, another Swami, and we showed him the poster and discussed the timing that Ryan disappeared on the 24th of August. And he asked what time of the morning, and I thought that was strange. I said 5 a.m. and he mentioned that sometime in August, and he couldn't say when, he was meditating between 9 and 10 a.m. in the morning, overlooking the Ganges, and he actually took us outside and showed us the seat that he was actually sitting on, meditating, and he said that he's convinced his memory was coming back to him from that 3 months ago, and he saw a body being swept down the river, close to the shore, and he said it was light-skinned, and he believed it was young, and just wearing knickers. That was his words. We don't know whether it was shorts or what he actually meant there, but so it was, I guess, a blow, certainly a jolt. This is the first time anyone's mentioned that, and as part of my search and investigation last time, I had confirmed that the Ganges was checked 3 times, and that's the answer I got back, that it was clear that they drained the barrage and there was only an Indian national, and so it's a matter of asking, well, who is this? Now, it could be anyone, that's not to say it's Ryan, but what's happened to this body that's been sighted? And the Ganges was fast flowing at that time. It was towards the end of the rainy season, and the barrages or dams were open, otherwise it would flood the place, you know, if they were closed. It would just build up too fast. So they were open, so chances are that anybody would pass through the barrage at Rishikesh. And I believe that there must have been somewhere along the route of the Ganges that bodies, and there's animals in there as well, and other debris must get stopped, caught. And someone's trying to tell me, oh, I could have gone all the way to Calcutta, 2,000 kilometres. And I can't buy that, but I couldn't say any different. And then later I was told that there is a catchment area at Haridwar, which is, by road, it's about 24 kilometres from Rishikesh. Don't know what it is along the river. So it's something we have to check out, and but that hasn't been done yet. I'm still working on that. But so that was a low point, because while there's nothing to say that it's Ryan, he seemed fairly genuine that it was a young person and about that time. So yeah. Anyway, later that day we went to more ashrams, and it's amazing that things come up by chance. We walked into an ashram, spoke to the manager. He agreed to put up posters, very friendly. We had a tea or chai with him. And then an American chap who must be staying at that ashram came in, and he mentioned that a Canadian lady who is now an Indian national works for the Canadian embassy and with missing persons, and she might be very helpful. So arranged to meet her that night at a hotel nearby, and when we got there, she said that she believed that her friend had seen Ryan a month before. And all of a sudden, our hopes rise. You know, here's the roller coaster again, from dips to highs. And she said, convinced, because what was in the paper after our press conference, some of the words that this particular person that this friend had met seemed to be much the same as what was quoted in the paper from the press conference. And that was his final entry in his journal. So we waited for the friend, and when the friend came in, he said straight away it wasn't him. So here we go, down into the valley of the roller coaster of emotions. And I guess that's what it's been all along. At home, we've tried to keep the straight and narrow, and we drift to the worst scenario, fearing the worst. And but over here, it's been up and down so many times. And Aaron really felt it himself. It was a tough day for him, because I don't think he'd been actually through that like that before. Anyway, we arranged to meet the friend the next day. No, to meet a bubba where this supposed sighting was, even though the friend didn't think it was Ryan. We thought we'd confirm it, and we did go and see this bubba, and he had given food and shelter and clothing to a particular guy, but he was taller. He's from Brazil, so his English was poor, and it definitely wasn't Ryan. So back to square one, another dead end. It's just amazing how we come across things, and they're only by chance. It's amazing. We just don't get any firm evidence. It's a matter of just stumbling into a temple or walking into an ashram, and there's just so many of them around. So it's been difficult in that respect. But then another matter of chance, we went to, this morning we went back to, this is day, I don't know what day it is, day 7, went back to the temple, Forester's Temple, where Ryan was believed to have been seen 3 months ago, because that indication contradicts what the Swami says about the body going down the river, because it's past that point. We went to the temple and there was no one there, but we tried, or we found out where the actual Baba, the priest, lived. So we went back there, and while one of our drivers went to look for him, we decided to have a chai just by the side of the road. We were enjoying that, and the driver came back and said that the Baba was doing a wedding that day, so he wouldn't be available till tomorrow. So we thought, oh, well, we'll go back to the temple tomorrow. And then this young chap comes up, and he says to our translator that for a living he collects bodies from the river. I thought, well, congratulations, what a job. But he did mention that he saw a body in the river, at the edge of the river, and it was a white body. I didn't know what time, how long ago it was at that stage, but we decided to take him down there. It was only about 3 kilometres away, and I expected, well, regardless of when he saw it, maybe still there. I was thinking perhaps a wooded area, perhaps caught amongst branches, whatever. But no, it was a populated area, and there was a sort of concrete bank, and there were some rocks there, and but it wasn't there now. And I found out the time frame was definitely wrong. He'd last seen it before it disappeared again about 20 days ago, 3 weeks before now. And it was only half a kilometre, I suppose, from the ashram where Ryan was, and also the Swami's ashram. So it wouldn't have taken 2 months to get to that point. And it'd only been there a few days, so he said. But we asked him to keep looking right down to the barrage along the banks and see what he finds. We gave him 300 rupees so he can employ some other people, and it's just one of those things. So we're looking at both ways. We're also looking at groups of Chilam Babas, those hashish smoking Babas. They're quite well protected by the people. They're not, I wouldn't say they're revered, but the people protect them and look after them. They don't hassle them at all. And it's only conjecture that someone suggested he might be with Chilam Babas, who can give him sustenance and feed him and so on.
Right, I was just going to actually say the woman, the Canadian woman. Can you tell us a bit about her? And obviously, you saw her tonight. Can you tell us about what she's quite a character, what she does, and how long she's been here and stuff like that, and her theory on it all, and just how that makes you feel.
Yeah, the lady, the Canadian lady, Marchen Jyoti is her Indian name. She's taken Indian citizenship, and she's lived here for close on 40 years. She's a real character. She's a warden for the Canadian Embassy. In other words, she handles things in this area for them, and she's been involved in successful searches for Canadians, and she suggested that, she was the first one to suggest that Ryan might be with the Chilam Babas, because a lot of foreigners do join them. they get involved with them and travel with them. She said, sorry to say that if he is, he'd be on drugs and could be spaced out, could be high. If that was the case, I'd only be too happy. I mean, we'd know that he's alive and safe, and we'd recover him, of course, when he was ready, if it wasn't right now. But it is just conjecture. But we're following it through. One of her devotees is a former policeman, and he's now a private investigator. So we've asked him to check out a particular enclave of Chilumbabbas, which is quite close. Asked them to do it, and also check further down the river at Haradwar, where bodies are taken out, human bodies, debris and so on. There's apparently one time each day it's lifted up and cleared out. So they're going to do that for us, and also your red light's flashing.
Mate, you were just telling us about, what's the young fella's name? The private investigator.
Jaypal Singh Chauhan.
Oh, yeah, Chauhan. Yeah. Can you were just telling us about what he had planned, what he's got planned for the next couple of days. So, what's this private investigator got, in store for you?
Yeah, Ma Chetan Jyoti has a devotee who's a private investigator. It was in the police force. And we've arranged with him, after seeing her today, to first of all check out the catchment cage at Haradwar, and also check out the particular enclave of Chilumbabbas that Ma Chetan Jyoti mentioned. She said it's a seedy place, not a nice place, but it's where foreigners can end up with these Chilumbabbas, which are basically just monks who smoke chillum, which is hashish. They get into that sort of mode. But he's also going to set out a plan of attack to track down Ryan. It's purely conjecture that he's with Chilumbabbas. We just don't know that. But it's as a line of inquiry we'll certainly look at. But he would be checking Chilumbabbas at every ashram from here to Utakashi. That's a distance of about 190 kilometres. Then check hospitals, government hospitals, and also jails, because foreigners do get picked up by police eventually if they haven't got their passports, and some foreigners just throw their passports in the river. They just, so I'm told, they just renounce their former life and want to become Chilumbabbas or Indians. Not always with the Babbas, but certainly a change of life. Or they may get sick, so they end up in the hospital. Unbelievable. But he's going to set out a plan for that, and we'll be in touch with email quite often, I'd say, and a cost, of course. He'll let us know the cost. But he's going to do the first two things over the next few days, so we may hear something before we leave. Otherwise it'll be email, phone, and so on. And he wants another 1,000 posters, or give him some money for that. But Ma Chetan Jyoti was a very interesting character. And tonight we went to her kirtan performance on the top of her ashram. It was quite interesting, with Hindi singing. She's a singer and a musician. And she said that she had, at one time, had 400 in her audience on the roof of her house, and there wasn't much space up there. It would have been pretty packed. Yeah, she is, but very helpful, very knowledgeable, and so that could be good.
Why does she believe that he may be with the Chilumbabbas, smoking drugs? Why does she believe that?
think she believes he may be with the Chilumbubbas is that he hasn't been sighted for 3 months. She's seen it over and over, particularly with Canadians that she's tracked down. India does something to people. People who are looking for something, mainly younger people, but I think she's had the experience and she's found so many people with the Chilumbubbas. It's just her experience. So she's saying Ryan, although he wasn't a big drug user, he's had occasional smoke, as a lot of young kids, I won't say most, a lot of young kids do. A lot of people do. But certainly not a regular drug user. But I think it's just her experience that that's what she's found in the past, mainly Canadians.
Mate, what do you think? I mean, I know that you're saying it's purely conjecture, but is there any other possibility that, that Ryan, is there any other thing that could be sustaining Ryan for this particular amount of time, in your opinion?
When I look back 3 months and we're such a close family, and the way that Ryan left and the discussion he had with his mother the night before, which sounded strange, and hearing what Nadia and Michael said that same night, a few hours before he disappeared, I can't say that I believe that he's with Chilumbubbas, and I've always said in the last 3 months that someone must be feeding him. But the fact that we haven't had any contact at all, and again, there's just this sighting which may or may not be genuine, but it's difficult to believe that Ryan's still alive. I fear the worst, and that's probably the worst part of all this. Fearing the worst, but not knowing. I'll still follow the trial that Marchet and Jyoti has set out, but I'll check other lines of inquiry too. But it is, it's not good. We know in our hearts that Ryan would have been in touch. While she says that so many people renounce their country, they throw their passport away and so on, and do their own thing. It's just, Ryan would have been in touch. That's our belief.
How would you account for his behaviour before he disappeared then?
I really can't account for his behaviour before he disappeared. His mother told me since that about a week before he came to India, he wasn't sure if he was ready to come to India. But we had chats, we had talks, but he never outright said why. We just thought it was nervousness, first overseas trip. He'd been away from home, that was with work. But we can't account for his behaviour unless something was tormenting him before then. He seemed to be okay during the 2 months that he was in India. I can't recall any problem when we were in touch at least every week. And there was on chat, on Messenger and email and phone, of course, SMS. But nothing for 3 months. Can't account for it. Can't account for him actually leaving.
Could it be possible that it's the drugs that are doing this to him?
Now, in the last 3 months, I've got no idea where he is. I don't believe drugs were involved. There's no indication that he took it, and there was conflicting stories, but Nadia and Michael told us this week that they asked him if he was high, and he wasn't. They didn't believe he was on anything. So it seemed to indicate there was something tormenting him. But we don't know why, we don't know what triggered it, whether it was something that had been carried for some time. We just hope we get to the bottom of it.
Mate, there's still a couple of things to chat about, but one of the things, you mentioned it briefly before, you talked about Aaron going through something similar to what you went through, well, not only your last trip, but this trip as well, by the way it seems. I mean, how have you seen Aaron, I guess, grow, or as a man, or how have you seen him get through this trip?
Aaron's been a great companion on this trip. He's always been able to show or give different perspectives on things, his own perspective, which are very wise. He's really seen some sights in India, and I'm sure he'll remember them forever, and certainly understand perhaps why people might change when they come to India, how really there's nothing to fear in India. People travelling here, provided people are sensible. I mean, the people are so friendly. That, of course, there's bad people in every country, but in the cities, if people are looking after themselves, there's really nothing to fear, and the people themselves don't fear the future. They seem to be happy, friendly, helpful. I'm sure he'll remember this trip forever, and it'll mean a lot to him, I think, if we can't find his brother, to know that he was in the area. And it's tough. He mentioned the roller coaster yesterday, and it really affected him a fair bit. He finds it hard to believe that Ryan's still living, but until we get evidence otherwise, we'll walk that tightrope. Might mention that I mentioned about the friendly people here, and one of the friends I made last trip, the store owner Narayan Rawat. It was funny when we were coming back from Gungatree. This four-wheel drive went past us and tried to wave us down, and we thought, oh, what's this, robbers? So we just kept on, we went past it, and then it went up past us again, and one of Ryan's posters is flapping out the window, and so they stopped and we stopped. And I thought, oh, I must have found him. Hopped out, and it was Narayan. He'd been to Uttarkashi for a wedding. I knew he was going there, and he'd seen the poster on the back of our car, and he'd been plastering posters around Uttarkashi where he was staying, and he wondered how we got a poster on our car, so that's why he wanted to find out. And then he saw it was me getting out of the car and came over and hugged us, and it was interesting to be travelling in India with 1.1 billion people and to find someone you actually know and who's a local anyway on a trip like that. It was just unbelievable.
I'm going to take it back just a couple of days. Actually, I have to ask you about the press conference. Obviously, it was very emotional and obviously very tough. Can you tell us a bit about the press conference and how you were feeling through that?
Yeah, the press conference was excellent. It was well attended. A lot of media there. We had the poster up and highlighted the reward for anyone finding Ryan, and answered questions from the press. I made a statement about the fact that I'd return, pay the reward to find Ryan, and introduced Aaron. And then certain questions were asked about, I can't even remember them now. One might have been about drugs. I don't know, I really can't remember the other answers. But then I also appealed to Ryan in case he was able to see the press conference or the news on the press conference. That was very emotional. I can't remember when my jaw has ever been that low. I found it hard to keep I couldn't keep my emotions in check. It was pretty tough. And Aaron supported me there, and I supported him when he had something to say towards the end. But there was an interview afterwards with the television outside, and again we repeated information to the people to get the news out far and wide. And we'll continue to do that until we get an answer.
Aaron mentioned that it was, I guess the first time that you're actually speaking to him, in a sense, perhaps a little bit like the letter that you wrote.
Yes.
Can you tell us? Did it feel like that? Was that what you sort of felt? Did you feel like you were actually speaking to him?
I certainly felt like I was speaking to Ryan, and that was my whole intention. That's who I was talking to through the TV lens, and Aaron did the same. And I'd done that before on a previous trip on news interviews, and each time's been pretty tough. I mean, that really gets to the core of your being when we're talking to a youngest son, and we don't know where he is. Just hoping he's on the other side of the camera.
Mate, we're not going to keep you here much longer. But I guess you're coming up to, as we mentioned before, the end of this trip. Is there anything else that you're hoping for, or what does the future, hold for you now?
I've certainly thought about this. It's another part of the journey, and it's coming. Well, this trip is coming to an end. And Diana and I have discussed it. What do we do next if we don't get an answer? And I guess we'll just keep putting the word out, keep our contacts that we have here. Hopefully that the Governor will set up a special investigations team. That was what we asked him. Full-time police on the case. And use every available resource we have. But there's many more people we can speak to. I mean, there's 1.1 billion people here. We'll just keep trying. We want an answer.
Do you think you'll ever get one?
We can only hope. We are seeking an answer. We want an answer. It's up to, I could say, the Indian gods to give us one.
Mate, I'm just going to ask these fellas, because there's so much in this last week that even my mind is, a bit blown by it all.
We might have more tomorrow.
Just off. Yeah. Mate, I guess if I had to ask you one more, you look back on these last 7 or what has been the most you mentioned it before about the press and the media coverage being the great success of the journey. What's been the most frustrating part of it, or the most disappointing part of it? Can you tell us about that?
The disappointing part, I guess, was the trip to the getting to Gunga Tree and realising that, hey, it was such a slim chance. We had to take it. But the information that we'd received was at odds with what was there. We were told that there were going to be people there who would know who was around. There'd be a lot of people like bubbers and groups of bubbers that may have foreigners with them. We were told that different times. And it was by the police, it was by, I can't remember who. People who should know, Indian people who should know. And when we got there, there was, I don't know, most 8 to 10 people. It was a ghost town. No bubbers around. It was too cold for them. They'd moved out. And the snow was due. I mean, we were told that there were bubbers who stayed in caves and lived in the snow through the snow season. I mean, they'd have pretty warm clothes to live in caves in the snow. It was icy cold before the snow. So that was disappointing. The trip was great. It eliminated Gunga Tree, and Gunga Tree had been suggested the previous trip that that's where people go. They may have 3 months ago, because it was warmer. There would have been a lot more people there, but there was no evidence to suggest Ryan went there. He had no money, no ID. And I guess the other disappointment is the possible sighting of Ryan, and again thinking we're going to find him. Bingo. The friend comes in, no, it's not him. So I guess it's the sequence of disappointments all add up. Very frustrating.
On that note, you've mentioned about the Indian people being so friendly and so helpful, but at the same time, has it been difficult to get a straight answer?
It hasn't been difficult to get a straight answer from the Indian people. It's been the lack of information, I think. The lack of knowledge from, perhaps we were asking the wrong people. Perhaps people were offering information they didn't really know about. But it hasn't been difficult to get the information. It's just been incorrect. Or perhaps not complete. That might be a better answer.
How's that made you feel?
That old word, frustrated. Yeah, frustration certainly creeps in.
So, do you see this Canadian woman, how do you view her and her devotee, the private investigator? Is she and he the best hope that you've got? Are they just another, shot in the dark? What are your thoughts about them?
Chet and Jyoti and a friend, Chauhan his name is, they have experience, so they tell me, with the Canadians and the Canadian Embassy. I'll rely on them as much as I can. I can see that police, while they've been active, when someone hurries, as it has been the case recently, they get active again and put up a lot of posters. But I don't know what they're actually investigating. That's the difficult part. But at least with this chap, and led by Chet and Jyoti, who can translate for us, and she's on email, so there'll be regular contact. Yeah, hopefully we'll get some answers to our questions. The other option is the Special Investigations Team, if that comes off. And the third option we have is Group 4, who are prepared to assist. That's a worldwide firm, and it's in Australia as well, but the team in Delhi have... I'm not quite sure what they can do yet, but they are private investigators as well. They're involved in security, and they'll certainly be able to follow up work that the police are doing and make sure things are happening. And then there's the Australian High Commission in Delhi, who hopefully can support that as well and ensure that things are done.
Mate, I think that's it. Are you happy? How has Di been through all this? You know, your conversations back to Australia. Can you tell me about them and how is she?
I think you'd have to ask her. Diane has been home the whole time, and Jared, well, he doesn't live at home. He's been out of the country as well. He's in New Zealand. He comes back in the next few days. But Diane's well supported back home with friends and work colleagues, and we're in touch every day. And yeah, she's had her sad days, but I can't say personally what has gone through her mind. But I guess she maybe, because we haven't found Ryan, we haven't got any answers to this stage, that yeah, she may be feeling the same as us.
Let's go have something to eat, mate.
Yep.
वो जो मैंने बॉडी देखा जी, वो दूसरे का था जी। आपका आदमी जिंदा है, सही सलामत है जी। मैंने इसको 20 दिन पहले, जहाँ हम कल मिले 20 दिन पहले, वहाँ पे अकेले ही घूम रहा था। सेम ऐसे कपड़े पहने थे इसने 20 दिन पहले।
कहाँ देखा था?
जहाँ पे हम मिले थे ना कल, आप मैं जहाँ पे आप चाय पी रहे थे कल,
हाँ।
वहाँ उसके थोड़ा आगे, एकदम थोड़ा आगे, वहाँ पर 20 दिन पहले कच्छा पहन रखा था इसने, टी शर्ट, और सेम बाल ऐसे थे। उसने मेरे से हेलो करा, मैंने भी हेलो करा उससे।
फिर क्या हुआ?
फिर उसके बाद नहीं मिले हम फिर।
He says that the dead body that I saw was not of your son.
कल मैंने पता किया वो दूसरे की थी।
I believe is safe and sound and alive. In fact, I saw him a few days ago, not very far from where you were drinking tea yesterday. तो फिर बाद में क्या हुआ? तो मतलब
बाद में फिर उसके बाद में कहीं चला गया। फिर 1-2 हफ्ते के बाद तो मैं चला गया। एक ही दिन मिले हम। मेरे को अभी तक मेरी खोपड़ी में उनका चेहरा याद है ढंग से। हमने आमने सामने, में जा रहा हूँ आ रहे हैं, आमने सामने का टक्कर हुआ हमारा।
वो अकेला था?
वो भी अकेला था, मैं भी अकेला था।
He says, when I saw the picture which he gave me, I clearly remember that face, and I physically met him. He was all by himself. I was going somewhere and we crossed paths and he said hello to me, and that's it. So अगर उन्हें तो कैसे ढूंढ सकते हैं, क्या करना है? क्या
जी
क्या?
वो मिल जाएंगे आपको जी। देखो मेरे को उनकी टी शर्ट का चेहरा मेरी आंखों में अभी भी है। ऐसी टी शर्ट का चेहरा मेरी आंखों में अभी भी, ऐसे सेम ऐसे कपड़े पहने थे उन्होंने।
He says, I'm confident that we can find him. तो तुम क्या कर सकते हो उसके लिए?
जी हम
What was he wearing?
तो क्या पहन रहे थे?
जी सर, आप अभी मनाली गए?
मनाली नहीं गए
जी, वहाँ पर भी हो सकता है जी। देखो जी सर, मैं पूरी कोशिश करूँगा जितना अपना।
चौधरी तुम अपना ऊपर जाके चाय वगैरह पी लो, और वो पंडित आगे, हाँ तो तुम जाके तुम अपना तैयार रहो, हम निकलेंगे यहाँ से। हाँ।
जी मेरे को किसी बाबा ने बताया कि वो अंग्रेज पहाड़ में निकल गया कहीं।
कौन सा बाबा?
जी हमारे बाबा गोरी बाबा है कि वो, मैंने उनसे ऐसे ही बाबा जी से पूछा, मैंने कहा बाबा जी कहाँ पे मिलेंगे, ये कुछ बताओ। बाबा जी ने बोला ये अभी फ़िलहाल पहाड़ जा रखा घूमने। ये इधर बताया उत्तरकाशी की साइड में।
हम उत्तरकाशी तो होके आए हैं, वहाँ कुछ पता नहीं निकला है
जी।
हम उत्तरकाशी गंगोत्री तक जाके आए हैं।
गंगोत्री तक?
हाँ बिल्कुल, तो मतलब पता निकल नहीं पाया।
उत्तरकाशी में घनसाली में गए आप?
कौन सा जगह?
उत्तरकाशी के सामने घनसाली।
घनसाली नहीं, वहाँ नहीं गए हैं। He says, I asked a Hindu monk, normally people who are not terribly educated, they think the monks are know-alls, and I said, कब पूछा तुमने बाबा से?
जी मैंने रात ही पूछा।
In the night, I showed this picture to a monk and I asked him, can you tell something about this lad? He says, no, he's gone to the mountains, he's all right, and things like that. I would take it with a pinch of salt, but anyway, let's see where this line of questioning pursues, okay?
What was he wearing?
तो कपड़े क्या पहन रहे थे जब तुम मिले थे?
टी शर्ट और जींस का कच्चा ऐसा था कुछ। मेरे ऐसे कलर का कच्चा था वो।
He was wearing shorts. whose color was something like that, the trousers he's wearing, and he had a t-shirt on him, he claims. Okay? Fair?
जी उनके काला यहाँ पर कोई काला ऐसा कुछ धागा सा देखा मैंने, नीचे से ऊपर तक देखा, कुछ काला सा धागा भी था
यहाँ
उनके यहाँ।
बंधा हुआ था?
हाँ जी बंधा हुआ।
ये एक पाँव को?
हाँ जी एक पाँव को।
I seem to remember that he had something tied to one of his legs, a black thread-like thing.
That's what I said yesterday, but I was just...
We told him that. We don't know if
We
it's...
told him that yesterday.
Okay.
But I don't even know if that's true.
That doesn't matter. Okay.
No.
We, I have to get to the bottom of this. What is it? What is his game plan? Is he trying to kind of... Anyway, let's just see. Okay, ठीक है. Fair? तो चलो ठीक है. ये खुशी की बात है कि जो शरीर को देखा, गोरे शरीर को नदी में, तुम समझते वो नहीं है. चलो ठीक है. Thank you. So we are grateful, we are relieved that the body which you saw does not belong to our boy. But what else can you do now to find him? अब तुम क्या कर सकते हो?
जी अभी हम जाएंगे, अभी हमको जाना है उत्तरकाशी की साइड, घनसाली, और मैं आपको 1 हफ्ते का टाइम देता हूँ. 1 हफ्ते में
ऐसा करो, तुम्हें जो करना है
जी
करो, ढूंढो. कुछ इतला है, लड़का मिल गया तो मुझे टेलीफोन कर देना. 1 लाख रुपया तुम्हारा हो ही गया समझो. ठीक है? तुम धन्यवाद. अब तुम जा सकते हो. I said I'll go look around and see if I can help find him. I said if you find him, these 100,000 rupees are yours. All right? We have already given you 300 rupees. अगर तुम लड़के को सही सलामत लाओगे,
सही सलामत है. अब मैंने बताया आपसे घूमने जा, स्मोक करते हैं ये.
स्मोक मतलब हशीश या गांजा, चिलम वगैरह? चरस. Do you know if he is into drugs? You also know. इनके पास इतना नहीं है. अच्छा ऐसा करो.
Maybe now. It's not out of the question now, but he wasn't before.
जब हमारा मुल्क छोड़े थे वहाँ तो ऐसा सुविधा नहीं होती है, गैर कानूनी है. कोई ऐसा पकड़ा जाएगा तो पुलिस अंदर कर देते हैं. यहाँ तो साधुओं का प्रांत है, साला कुछ भी चलता है. तो हो सकता है यहाँ आने के बाद में हमारा बेटा बिगड़ गया हो, हम कह नहीं सकते, लेकिन वहाँ तो नहीं है. तो मेरा कहने का मतलब है, तुमने जो इन्फॉर्मेशन दिया कि मतलब लड़का जिंदा हो सकता है, मरा नहीं है, जो शरीर तुमने देखा वो लड़के का नहीं है, तो इनके बाप और भाई बहुत खुश हैं. ये कहते हैं भैया मेरे बेटे को पकड़ के ले आओ, यहाँ लाओगे तो इसी होटल में चाहोगे तो लाके टेलीफोन करो, उनको बोलो हम इनको बोल के जाएंगे, लड़के को यहाँ रखो, टेलीफोन करो, फिर हवाई जहाज में आके बेटे को ले जाएंगे तो हमको 1 लाख रुपए मिल जाएगा. ठीक है? ओके, थैंक यू. तुम जा सकते हो. ओके.
So what was that?
I said you do whatever you like, go around, find our boy, bring him to this very hotel. We'll request these people to put him up here, and then you ring me up. I'll ring up, get in touch with the dad. They'll fly back and fetch him and take him back, and the father will collect his son and give you 100,000 rupees. That money is yours. Yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, अच्छा, ठीक है विजय. Thank you.
Thank you. So does he have a mobile phone? Is that what he was calling from? Does he have...
20 days ago I saw.
That was the body, but what about the...
No. 20 दिन पहले क्या देखा था? मरा हुआ शरीर का या लड़के को?
मैंने दोनों को देखा है जी. मतलब वो बॉडी दूसरी है, मतलब ये इसको भी देखा मैंने वहीं पर जहाँ हम कल मिले. तो मेरे उस टाइम ध्यान नहीं आया मेरे, फिर मेरे अचानक ध्यान आया. मैंने कहा ये और मिला था मेरे को यहाँ पर, उसके बाल सेम ये देखा ना मैंने, तो अपनी खोपड़ी में सोचता रहा मैंने कहा वो भी अकेला था, ऐसे ही घूम रहा था यहाँ पर.
Well, I mean, it's coming up with some information which does not convince me. Maybe he's hoping that he'll make some money out of it. But anyway, let's not make him feel that we don't trust him. So, in good faith, we will say, okay, thank you for all the information. There is no point. I mean, he's not equipped to respond to our cross-examination. So, we just let that be, leave him alone and say, if you get our boy, you get your money. And
that's the thing, yeah, whether he saw him or not, if he goes out and tries to find him and does find him, then we give him the money. If he doesn't, then he doesn't. That's cool.
No, that's it. That's what I'm trying to say. We owe him nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
He finds the boy, he gets the money, and thank you very much.
And if he's lying and he doesn't, then that's cool. It's fine.
Shall I give him another 100 for the information?
Yeah, you can give him another 100 rupees and that's it. And if Michael has finished with the cutaways, then we can ask him to say.
just sitting.
और पास रख लेना जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन है कुछ आए तो मैं इस मैनेजर साहब से विनती करता हूँ राज अगर साहब का लड़का ले आएगा ना हमारा नंबर
और जो छोड़े जो देखे जिन जो लवारिस हैं वो तो पता नहीं कितने मतलब 30 बॉडी निकाली
I've been in this business of looking for dead bodies for the past 5 years and I retrieved at least 30 bodies for the last 5 years. There could be several more dead bodies which are not reclaimed or anything. That's what it is.
जी सर जी
Where would they be?
ના ખોરાક તો રાખો ને એટલે આટલું બધું
Windy.
Sorry, it's the food.
હસો થોડા હસો સ્માઈલ હા એમ
Hello, sir.
Sorry, is it you?
Hello, sir. This is Satchadham Ashram.
Ah, excellent. A bit longer. Who knows? We don't know.
Film utaré. Film utaré.
That's if it actually focuses. See, it's just too hot.
Probably if they could stand together.
No.
No?
No.
Go on board lines?
No, because it'll spoil it. Much nicer than the three ladies sitting there. You taken photos before? It's not about juxtaposition.
Lagi daw.
Na, lagi na.
Sabi na.
Sabi.
Kalau gata na. Kalau gata na.
Boleh gana. Lagi.
How long have you been finishing for?
About 2 days.
Oh.
Off you go.
वारदात करके निकला हूँ।
ये तुम्हारे फोटो आ गए।
पूरी तस्वीर है इसकी बनाई जो लाखों का इनाम पाएगा मैं कोई लाखों का इनाम पूरा ला रहे हो सुना इसे करते हुए
All right, Jock. Straight up, stick to the right-hand side and off you go.
What if I made noise every time you were doing some sound? Like I am now. La 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 la.
Who's got the? Well, who's got the other one? Here to actually view it. Walk right down the Swag Street.
Say again, mate, sorry.
We can walk across here
Yep.
to the market over here, walk back to Swag Street.
Yep.
What we were planning is going over here to actually view the market.
Come again, sorry.
Accept that perhaps he was taking drugs, but the evidence that the people who
What they'll do is that if he's there a year, one day they'll put it themselves, they'll put his photograph in the papers, or they'll go to embassies, but it's 2 months, so you know it might not happen yet. It's a bureaucracy. And I'm not saying it's right, but it's a bureaucracy. This is a government hospital. This is not a private hospital. See what I mean? So this is another possibility that he's wigged out. You know, he's not on drugs, in which case he would be on his own. He'd be on his own. So I would say by now he's going to be in a institution somewhere. You know, you guys might take a whip up to Agra.
might be worth it.
Go to the big Salem Asylum, because you know it's huge, so it collects up everybody from north of India there finally.
How
up
far
there.
is it away?
Agra is a 3-hour drive from Delhi. It's the Taj Mahal.
Oh, okay.
And Agra's where the Taj Mahal is. So very, very easy to go there. You know, huge super highway.
We've got plenty of time between our flights tomorrow. I mean, it might be an opportunity.
I would do that. You know, really I would. If his friends are saying that they think he wasn't on drugs and he just wigged out. I mean, this is serious wigging out. I'm Peter Pan, I can fly. It's not a joke, huh? It's so funny that well, I mean, it's not fair to say. I don't want to be recorded on this. It's so funny that the father could deny all this so much. You know, such a strange angle he's taken for his look.
I think, listen, I think it's inexperience, essentially. You know,
well, it's also not
talking about other things that I'm going to ask you about.
Okay.
And you know, reveal in this particular story that we're doing. And I guess, like I said.
Oh, in this particular story.
Well,
I don't. But this won't hurt the father. This will
No,
hurt him
no,
a lot, though, won't it? Or are you doing this sort of independently as well,
no,
a bit?
No. It's very much a cooperation, of course, with this. I mean, we have stayed with them for the last
couple of months.
Yeah, you know, we have travelled with them. We have gone everywhere. We went up to Gungotri.
Right.
They know that I'm here with you now.
Right.
You know, they know that I'm speaking to you about this place, and they know that that you know you. They know that we are interested in your perspective of it all.
Okay.
You know, so this is not something that is covert in any way, and it's a very open and honest.
So I should just let it go. Huh?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I guess what you know, first and foremost.
His mum's not going to like me much.
Oh, you know, no. I think that if you find them and you provide the truth, you know, you will be, you know, you will put their mind at rest one way or another. You know, and I think that's what you've done before. So.
That's right.
Can I just ask? Can I just move to that side or come over here? Would that be okay?
That good?
Yeah, indeed. So,
after that,
I might occasionally say, can I have that one again? It would be something you don't even hear.
Okay.
I'm listening to the background.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing I was just going to say is, I think that, when this is finally put together and stuff, if there are parents that would like it, to see what.
Well, that's what the embassy said, that they'd like a copy
Absolutely.
too, because maybe they use that in the embassy, because there's more Canadians than Australia's missing. So they might like it, and they might decide to make a little thing,
Absolutely.
and they might add to it themselves, whatever they want.
Absolutely.
And,
That can certainly be arranged.
Yeah.
No troubles.
That's what they said to me on the phone.
Oh, terrific. Well, I guess if we could start, you're right. First thing I just would like to ask you is if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a fascinating history with India, and I guess I was wondering how you got to come to live in this place, what you think of this place, and I guess, do you have any plans of heading anywhere else in your life?
Yeah. Wow, and I'm supposed to do this in a 10-minute interview? Like, that's a big question. Wow. So I'm not going to be able to give you such a deep answer in such a short time. I'm in this place because I lived in Hardwar in my guru's ashram, and my guru sold the ashram, and he's moved to made a nice, big, beautiful ashram somewhere else. And I was drawn back to the banks of the Ganges. And I was so fortunate to find this beautiful, beautiful place, as you've seen. And I've been here since 1988, so 20 years or so. And I hope to die here. I'm very, very happy here. And I'm in India because of the spirituality that I felt. I came to India in 1963, and I came many times. And there's no doubt about it that the spirituality, the way it's integrated into the daily life, this is what really pleased me and thrilled me when I came. And the second thing that really intrigued me when I came was how happy the people are. I was astonished, I might say. And maybe I noticed that even before the spirituality aspect of it. So that really intrigued me. And that made me want to stay more and find out about that. And then I realized how deeply religion is permeated into their society, into each individual in India. So I love that. And, every moment that I'm in India, I'm reminded, and I myself am a spiritual person since a young age, and doing spiritual sadhana since a young age, so this is just perfect for me. So that's why I'm here.
Can you tell me, just very briefly, where you were born and, where did you grow up?
I was born in Toronto, and I was raised in Toronto, and I hadn't even been to Western Canada till after I lived in India for many years. And then my Gurudev wanted to go on a trip to the western part of United States and Canada, and that's when I saw Vancouver and realized I'd wasted my life in Toronto. It was so gorgeous there. Why did I stay in Toronto? So I met an Indian spiritual teacher in Toronto, and that's what started this sort of inevitable moment till now, and that started that really rolling.
Can you tell me, this would be a very Western question, but you have many roles here. If someone asked you what is your job, how could you describe that?
Oh, that's really easy. You see, I am now a initiated sannyas, which means that my guru has inducted me into being a sannyas in a sect which is called Udasin. And in India, there are many sects, and in North India, a very, very common sect, a very big sect, is the Udasins. And they're started up by the oldest son of Guru Nanak Dev. So there's a sort of a subtle connection with the Sikh religion, shall we say. In fact, they have the ultimate holy book is the same, the Guru Granth Sahib. And in fact, Guru Nanak, who's the founder of the Sikhs, wanted his oldest son to be his successor, but he said, no, I'm going to be a wandering sadhu. And he walked out, and he spent his life in the mountains in Kashmir. And he was a naked Baba. And he was a Duni Baba, which means they always carry fire with them, which in fact produces a certain kind of life, because you always need to keep that fire going with you. So you can't go too off the track. You're always bound by this fire. So it's a method as well. And he lived till he was more than 100 years old, and he's the founder of the Udasin sect, because he was called the Udasin. And so now that means that when you take on this color, this orange color, you've seen it many, many times in the last couple of weeks that you've been here in Rishikesh. There are many thousands of us here. And the true meaning of sannyas is that you have no of your own life left. You don't have any personal reason to live. You live impersonally to serve the universe, to serve everybody, all living creatures, and everything in the creation. You only live to help them, to serve them, and to bring out their spirituality, their divinity. So that's why you live and breathe. And you have nothing will interfere with it, because you don't have your own scenario anymore, your own desires to interfere with that. So this is the attraction for living beings, because they find another living being who's only for them, only to awaken them, to bring out their spirituality, even as I'm doing right now as I'm talking to you. Because that's what I see in you. That's what I'm interested in you. I'm not interested in the fact that you're here for an interview, or that you're on this job with, or you. I'm not impressed by the outward body, what you're doing, or how you look, or why you're here. All for me it means that the divine brought you here to me, and so my work begins, and that is to awaken the divinity in you. It doesn't matter who you are or why you came. Whether you came to me with a question that I'm a sadhak, I'm doing sadhana, I'm doing meditation, I'm having this experience, could you help me? I get lots of people like that. I get lots of emails like that. But you're here for, you think, a totally different reason. But in fact, for me, I know that you're brought here by the divine play, because you could have easily not met me and be still on your job. So that's my job. And I'm on duty 24 hours a day. I have no holidays. I don't get any pay. And I just am a being who is that. So when you've reached that, you'll find a guru that will say that now you've reached that, and now I initiate you into that, and that's your work. Now that is the real meaning of sannyas, and that is the real work of sannyas. Now God knows you're going to meet every kind of sannyas who has very, very different scenario, but I tell you the truth, that is the real sannyas and the real work of the sannyas. Unfortunately, nowadays very rarely found. And that's why who does find me, they really love me, because they find that. And I'm very, very honest. I'm your best friend for your spiritual life. For the divine part of you, I'm your best friend. Because that's what I'm always going to be true to, no matter what. No matter what it costs me in materialistic gains or losses, or even health gains or losses, that's what you'll find that I'm always doing for you. Even it might appear that we're having an interview and you're making a movie, but that's not what I'm really doing, to be quite frank with you.
That's fine.
You see, I managed to get you at my kirtan because I told you you can't film me in this. You see, I started right away, because right away I was just there for everybody, for the spirituality of it, including Aaron's father and Aaron and everybody.
Well, I'm pleased that
And Ryan, a dear soul, if I ever do meet him.
I was just going to, you also have quite another very different, I guess, role that you've sometimes performed for the Canadian Embassy.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that and how long you've been doing that? how that started, and I guess what what you experienced doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm a warden for the Canadian High Commission, as you know, and a warden is a sort of a contact person that embassies can have, and most embassies, I think, have them all over India, in case they need. They usually say it's for a case of evacuation, so they know who to contact in an area and say, okay, you inform all the Canadians. In my case. So I volunteered for this. It's a purely voluntary, and I did it because I thought that, so many foreigners come to me for help anyways, because I'm established here. I have a place, and I have a phone, and I have, TV, and I'm aware of what's going on, and I've been here many, many years, so I'm a natural person for people to come to. And I thought, well, let's formalize this, and that the embassy will actually be able to say to somebody, well, if you're in trouble, you go there. But one of the jobs that I found out, I didn't realize this at all, never thought of this when I volunteered for it, but that is finding missing Canadians. So that's been not something that I've really enjoyed much. But so far I'm still doing it, and every year they ask me, do you still want to do this another year? And I say, okay. And they really, really requested me a lot because, I'm not a Canadian citizen anymore. I'm an Indian citizen now. And when I gave up my Canadian citizenship, the ambassador actually came down and said that we have a special request for you. Would you remain as a warden? And they have no other Indian citizen as a warden. And I said, okay, so far. So in looking for missing people, as you know, that I told Ryan's father very frankly in the first second that I met him. I didn't beat around. I said, that in my experience, because just like you've come, other people come from other embassies that are missing children, usually children. And so I've run into other people as well, like Jock, other people looking for their children. And in 99.9% of cases, it's drug related. There's no doubt about it. And, either they're selling drugs or taking drugs or buying drugs or they're in drugs. So that's for sure. And of course, I've been in several situations where the family is sure that their children never go near drugs, but in fact, the family that was in the most denial about it was the one case where the person really is voluntarily, as we speak today, in drugs, and had told me to bug off, that they don't want or need to be saved, and that they don't want their parents interfering in their life, and the person's 30 years old, so they have a right to do it. So, and that's the family that's in the most denial about it, or just sure that that it isn't their child, So that's the first thing that I told Jock, and then in this particular case, in my opinion, it really seems extremely obvious because everyone is saying, and I've heard about the note that he left, and you've met his friends that were with him, and you've told me what they've said, and he was irrational. So he's either on a drug, or he himself has lost his mind, and probably lost his mind through drugs. Unless he has a history of mental illness, which apparently you don't know about either. Maybe this has been hidden as well. Maybe he has mental illness problems. Or else it's drug-induced mental illness, But again, we come back to that old enigma of drugs. So the thing about coming to a place like Rishikesh, and you mentioned that he'd been in Benares as well, there we have a case where the East meets the West. In other words, Western people meet the Indians, all types of Indians, and Indian culture, and they're all here mushed together. So it's quite unique. I mean, you know, it's not like going to Delhi where you won't be so in close contact with one another, or in other parts of India where there aren't many Westerners at all. So the fact of the matter is that drugs are easily, very easily available. And they're legal. It's not illegal to, you know, marijuana grows in my garden as we speak. There is right next door to me a huge 25-foot marijuana tree with a trunk on it like that, right here. And I had a friend that used to stand on my roof and gaze at it every day and say, I don't believe this, you know. And meanwhile, in the West, people are being arrested for, you know, 3 little spindly like this, you know, and then you go to jail for it. So it's perfectly legal. It is all over the place, growing, all over the place. And this whole episode we're talking about in this specific case with Ryan was in August, when there is millions of marijuana plants everywhere on my field, next door to me, growing up the cracks of the road, on this entire jungle. You know, he was staying across the Ganges in Vaidniketan, so on that entire jungle. There are huge marijuana plants everywhere. How are you going to stop someone from taking marijuana or hashish? And they make hashish very easily. They just go around to the top of the marijuana plants and go like this, and they get the gum in there. And in 10 minutes, they have a ball that big, because there's thousands of marijuana plants around. So, if a foreigner, a visitor here, wants to get into drugs, it's free, it's illegal, and it's acceptable in places like this. And so, I mean, need I say more? So, that's why when people suddenly start to act differently and they stop contacting their parents or their families and they disappear, that's why it is, you know, always drug related, because then the person changes. You know, they're doing a lot of drugs and their person changes. You know, their habits change, what they're doing. They're phoning their mom every week. Well, all of a sudden they don't. You know, and so then they go missing. And of course they become vulnerable. See, there's the other side of it, because now they're, you know, exactly as in the West, a person who does drugs becomes vulnerable. And they start to change their company, right? So what happens is the person might have arrived here with the intention of staying in ashrams or hotels or doing this or doing that, but because of drugs, they slip down from that into other people that are doing lots of drugs. So it may be lots of other foreigners, for instance, and there are places around here and in the mountains, the foothills of the mountains, that are known to be where a lot of foreigners hang out together and do drugs. And then there's the Chilam Babas, which is the part of Indian society that is acceptable to do drugs. So they might slip into that. You know, they take up the company of Indian Chilam Babas, which is so easy to do, perfectly legal. These are very nice people. They're not bad people, but they're constantly, you know, smoking up and taking hashish a lot, and bong, which is marijuana. So, and they're very easygoing. You know, they're all over the place. They're sitting under trees. They move about. They're wanderers. Wherever the weather's nice, they go, and sometimes they're in huge groups, and sometimes they're in small groups. Not very often alone, because the drug culture, they sit, they share a pipe together, they pass the time, they cook together, they help each other. You know, they're nomads that look out for each other. And they're very, very easy to meet for foreigners. They're, especially in Rishikesh in the hot season, they're here, and they sit along the Ganges under the shade of nice trees or on the beach, and they're very friendly. You know, I have a couple of Babas I like, by the way. A couple of Babas that I know take drugs but are very respectful around me, and they sometimes visit me here, and I let them in. They make sure they're not, you know, high when they come. They come, they visit me, they leave. They're nice people, you know. So, and of course there's bad ones too, who aren't nice, like any other group, right? I mean, you know. But the thing is, they're very, very, very accessible, that's for sure. And practically every foreigner who comes here me included, do go down and meet Babas, you know, because there they are. They look so interesting. They have fantastic hairdos. They're, you know, they are interesting, especially if you can get someone to translate for you, and they start to tell you their stories or their beliefs or, you know, what they do. Wow, you know, it's quite wild, huh? So, you know, they're fun. You know, they're fun. They're interesting, and they give you free drugs. You know, lots of it. So, you know, sometimes foreigners get into that and get themselves in trouble. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're into it and they stay into it and they're not in trouble. They're doing it because they want to. I mean, I know someone right now. We met them today who are very much want to stay in that, and they don't want to come out. So they do a lot of drugs and they feel they're okay. Then I was telling you the other extreme of a young lady that showed up at the French embassy and who had been drifted into it very voluntarily and became drugged more and more, did more and more drugs, went wandering with the Babas, and ended up not knowing where she was in a cave and being raped for years on end, and finally escaped, you know, who just got some sort of self-preservation, I suppose, and arrived almost dead on the doors of the French embassy. An old story many years ago. It shocked us all. We had known her, this girl too, as well. So she was saved. She got back to France. But you know, this was an extreme case of somebody who became vulnerable, helpless, and then they paid the price for it, right? So they really went into drugs. So, you know, there's so many stories. Oh, okay. Manelli, it's a feature. I couldn't believe it. You look up on the mountains all around Kulumanelli, and there's all, you know, there's villages, and then there's this huge, beautiful house with all glassed in the front, with a big deck out the front, and there's so many of them that you actually see them around. And these are dealers. They're, you know, foreign men, mostly, who are living there, become rich in dealing, and so now, I, to my astonishment, read in the paper that the Afghanistan, Kulumanelli, Goa has become one of the 2 or 3 biggest drug routes in the whole of the world. And now, I guess it's into heroin now, you see, big stuff. And so there's murders, you know, there's, like we're talking now, millions of dollars, Kulumanelli, and there's murders and stuff, you know, serious stuff. And that's one foreigner I found was dead. He'd been murdered, the Canadian man. So, and probably at Kulumanelli. I mean, the girls that knew him said that they saw him dead at Kulumanelli.
Can you tell me how you first found out about Ryan Chambers, and I guess what you mentioned about what your theories were a bit before, but what your gut feeling is about him, or you know, could he be with these Chilumbabbas? Do you think he's perhaps down the Ganges? Could you, when did you first hear about him?
Well, I heard about him, I was just minding my own business when I got a phone call from my friend at Sadigram, where you all were apparently. I don't know how you ended up there, but just near my ashram. So you were with him, and he phoned me, and he said that the father of the boy wanted to see me, and I already knew about that because it was in the newspaper, and I get the newspaper here, so Hindi newspaper and the English newspaper came in too, Hindustan Times, and I saw him briefly on television as well. I watched that newscast. It was on the Hindi channel, so I watched it as well. So I was aware that there was an Australian boy missing and that his father was here. Father and brother were here. So when my friend phoned me, I knew exactly who it was. And frankly, what happened was that I thought, oh, well, I can help them. I should say yes, because one of my musicians here, we have a musical group here and a music school here, and one of the teachers in the school had mentioned to me that at Veerbhadra Temple, which is right beside where you were, where the phone call came from, it's just, you know, a few feet from that ashram, there's a Veerbhadra Temple. And my teacher had mentioned that there was a month and a half ago, there was a foreigner there who was ranting and raving and saying that he was going to change the world and, you know, and revolutionize things, and that he was going to offer his life to Shiva, and acting very erratic, and stayed for about 5 or 6 days, and the pujari befriended him, and he was smoking chillum, and he had his face cut, and he was disheveled, and he just had on a pair of shorts and a little cloth around the top of him. So I thought that maybe you were there nearby because you had been checking out that temple. So, you know, I might have been more hesitant, but I thought, oh, well, I'll lend a hand in this because we can call my teacher and he can say what he knows, you know. So I said yes right away. I said, by all means, you know, maybe I have something. But as it has turned out, it wasn't Ryan. So my gut feeling about this, well, I have to come back to what I said the very first moments to his father, and you know, that right away I told the father that, I'll be frank with you, that it's usually drug related, and then the father started to tell me the specifics of this case. So I feel very much confirmed that this boy is on drugs, or he lost his mind. He has mental illness, but you know, his behavior is very, very erratic, and you know, his friends have said they tried to settle him down. I mean, this boy is, you know, he's definitely out of it. So you know, he's either on drugs or was on drugs, and or else he has a mental illness. So you've mentioned to me that perhaps there was some question of him believing in aliens and this kind of thing in Australia. So I wonder now, because you know, every day I learn a bit more from all of you, that it seems now that possibility enters in, that he is lost his mind for some other reason than drugs. But again, I have to come back to the fact that it always ends up drugs. You know, that's my experience. So what can I say? I have to sort of go on that. But if he's lost his mind, as I've mentioned to you, definitely he'll end up at the mental institution in Agra. And I had an experience of this, of a young lady who lost her mind, and despite best efforts of people to try to protect her and have her medicated, escaped. And because people who've lost their mind, they usually run, and they don't tell people, they just run out. And she was, you know, a good Samaritan, called the police. And the police told us that they had a tough time catching her, that she ran away, and they called as it was a female, they called the female police and ran away and had to sort of wrestle her to the ground. And then they had her committed into a mental institute here in Dehradun, and from there she was shifted to Agra. Because I think by law, they have to ship all the patients, unclaimed patients, to Agra. So I feel that should be checked out, because now there seems a little doubt about that, huh? So that should be done. And, you know, I would do it myself. I mean, it was me, I would do it myself. You know, because bureaucracy is bureaucracy, and, you know, mistakes can be made. You know, police might have told you they did check it out, and they thought they did, or somebody told somebody, and, you know, it didn't get done. But if you do it yourself, then it's done, you know. So that's one thing I would say right now. And the other point is that discussing this with my friends have now reminded me, as of last night, that the condition of the Ganges at that time, this is the end of August, the weather is completely different than it is now, and the Ganges is completely different than it is now. It's up 10 feet, it's roaring, I mean roaring by, with huge logs in it and big boulders being smashed through it. It's all full of white crests, you know, white waves, right here, and much more at Vedniketan. But here, even, it's just you can't you know, believe the difference. It's also very hot and humid, and very natural to take many, many dips in the water, or even just go to the edge of the water and wash your face. And he could have easily been swept up in that. And you know, this year a couple of people drowned in the Ganges here, right in Rishikesh, and every year 1 or 2 people drown in the Ganges in the rainy season because they get, you know, washed away in it. And from Hardwar also, because, you know, Indians take a dip in Ganges no matter what. And they have chains to hold. Well, you might have seen that on the Ghats. So they hold the chain because you'll be washed away. But they lose their grip. And people do get drowned every year, every year. So this year, a neighbor of mine, his son got drowned in the Ganges. So, you know, that's another possibility. And the third possibility, if it is drugs, and based on the fact that his note seems to indicate that he definitely wanted to stay alive because he feels he has a mission to do, and if it's drugs, then we have to start thinking of the company that he'll be keeping. And, you know, the logical solution would be either he's with other foreigners who take drugs, and those are certain places, and Kulu Manali is definitely the place for that, by the way. And you didn't go to Kulu Manali? You see, this would be where I would just dash to right now, if he's with foreigners. And if he's with Babas, then, you know, he's with Babas, so he's wandering around with a group of Babas who will be taking, you know, good care of him. And but keeping him, he'll be, you know, smoking up all the time.
I was just going to ask you, you know, he walked.
May I just ask, the dog dreaming of story?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Just wondering if you could just...
To watch the cricket match. They're desperate to watch the cricket.
If they do, can they just...
Yeah, they're going to do it without the sound.
Oh, great. What do you know about, you know, of course we've told you about it, but what do you know about what he was wearing, what he left behind, and I mean, how did he survive? I mean, this is the thing that's a Western mindset. Finds very difficult to believe how he just is surviving out there with nothing. Can you speak to me about that? Explain.
Well, you know, I've been told that he was wearing shorts, no shoes, and no top. That's what I've been told. And that he left everything behind, so he has no money, presumably, and no passport. And I've seen his, you know, you've told me the context of his, the note he left behind. So, like I said, if he is with Babas, if this is about drugs, and I have to go with the law of averages, that it is about drugs. So, if it's that, and he ran away to be with a group of Babas, then, you know, no problem. They'll immediately give him clothes and food, and you know, he'll be fine. You know, he'll look like a Baba right now. He'll have their clothes on. They usually wear this color, and because they get given this cloth, you know, by other swamis, or that usually they have money. You see, the swamis, they live in ashrams and they get donations, and they're much, you know, financially better off, and so they get given this cloth, and so, you know, he'll look like a Baba, and he's been 2 months, so he won't have shaved, and he'll have longer hair, and he'll probably look very much like them. He'll be, you know, just hanging out with them. You know, that's what they do. They hang out, they share a pipe of hashish or marijuana, and they cook. They spend quite a bit of time cooking. You know, I've seen them. They usually cook their own food. And they go to places where it will feed them, which is temples. Not very many ashrams. I mean, they could never stay in an ashram. No ashram would let them stay inside the ashram. But some ashrams at the gate, they would serve anybody who comes, and it's the Babas who come at the gate. And a lot of temples will let them stay, though. In the grounds of the temples, they could stay, and even they make little halls sometimes, and they can stay in the halls, you know, for a few days, and then they're supposed to move on. And the other place is, you know, holy places, you know, like Badrinath and Kedarnath and that. So Babas are there in the hundreds, because the people feed them, and there's thousands of people visiting those places every day, and they get fed every day very well, the fruit and milk and, you know, sweets, and so that's easy for them to stay in the holy places, the holy shrine places all over India. So he'll be, if the best scenario is that he's on light drugs and he's with Babas, that's the best scenario. He could live like that for years on end. Like I was saying to his father, you know, he might surface after a couple years. He finally gets sick of that, or something happens to him and he wants money. You know, suddenly he would like to have his own money, and that he won't have. he'll just be supported in the group of Babas. I mean, he may get a little bit of money. They may line up like the beggars, and people will flip him some money. He might get, I don't know, few rupees, every month. But if he suddenly wants money, then that's when he'll surface, And I've seen that happen too with people, they do that for a while. It's not a bad life. Not a bad life. You're a nomadic, carefree person. And, if the other thing is that those Babas would put up with his irrational behavior too. That's another thing. Because half of them are sort of raving people anyways, they're very, let's face it, there's a kind of losers that are doing this, just wandering around and smoking up and stuff, so, they're not having real intelligent conversations. Occasionally you find one that really, really chooses that life, and they know why they choose that life. Otherwise they're just kind of hanger-outers. So, that's the other thing, is that they'll tolerate his behavior, which is probably an important point, And maybe a group of foreigners, I don't know whether they get tired of him sooner. But there are places in India where there are foreigners hang out. Did you go to Swiss Cottage here in Rishikesh? What a shame. Go today. Go today. Right now. It's right in Rishikesh. You go to Swiss Cottage. It's up on the hill above Lakshman Jula. It's not down by the river. And you start, were photos put up there? Jock will know, huh? So ask Jock, and if he didn't put up photos there, there's the place to put the photos. Because if there's any place in Rishikesh that is known for foreigners who are on drugs, it's at Swiss Cottage. And there's a sort of a dumpy, hardly we can call it a restaurant, in the trees up there. And I've walked in there a few times, and I mean, people are just sitting there bombed, So if he's with foreigners doing drugs in Rishikesh, that would be, but it's also the place where he may have taken his drugs from, by the way, and so that should be checked out. The poster should be put up there at least. And that's a place where you get Western food too, and so I'm sure he visited there. I would be positive he visited there, at least to eat. So somebody might remember his photo from there.
Can you tell me about...
and the other place is Kulu Manali, to check out if he's with drug people, Western people, Kulu Manali would be it. And in Rishikesh, Swiss Cottage.
Can you tell me now as well, you have a team, I guess, that you work with, and of course we've met your colleagues. Who is that?
Jaipal. So I don't have a team because, you're hearing things that have happened over a, 25-year period with me. So, I mean, I'm not always out searching for foreigners, it's happened, 7 or 8 times in the last 25 years. So I've known Jaipal since he's a small boy, and he worked for many years in the CBI, in the Central Bureau of Investigation, and he was in the FIR for a while. And then he quit that. So he knows the methods, of searching for people, so he knows the way to do it. And I don't, I just work on my own logic. But he knows, and he has so many connections in the CBI and the FIR and the police and everything. And he's also born in this area, so he has many, many relatives that are the GIs, the general police inspectors and that. So he's a very, very, very useful person. So in the last couple of years, I got a couple of cases that I just couldn't find the person at all locally. So I asked him if he would help. And I was really amazed at how wonderfully he did it, and what a thorough professional job he did of it. And the families were very, very grateful, very grateful. And he took a lot of photos. In one boy that we never have found, and he was epileptic, and he went up in the mountains. So, it seemed that maybe he had a mishap there. So they didn't even realize, he told them by name where he was going, so they knew where he was going. But over in Canada, they had no idea that it was rough terrain. I mean, they thought maybe he was walking down the street. I mean, a person just says a name to you, I'm going to go Mook. and you live in Canada, you don't know what that means. So he went to Gomuk and took photographs, and and here it is, a little path this wide with a 300-foot drop down to the Ganges. So this in itself was an enormous comfort to them, because then they could see themselves that, yes, it was very possible he just had a mishap. Otherwise they wondered if he'd been murdered or something. But we were pointing out, no, an epileptic man in a place like that. And the other thing is that it ends up in a moving glacier. And his brother said, yes, he would take that as a challenge because of the epilepsy. He challenged himself. And we interviewed people, and you see there he was able to make videos of the interviews of the local guides that said it's madness, because every minute there's crevices opening up. And then so many foreigners have fallen down them that when they go without a guide, an experienced guide, that they fall into the crevices because they're covered with snow. It looks like it's just a level plain, but a experienced guide knows that that's crevice snow and you shouldn't step there, but the foreigner just goes. And in fact, while he was there was 5 foreigners had gone down fallen down in a crevice, and it happened 2 years before, but while he was there, their bodies came out from under on the sides of the glacier. So they recognized them by their clothes and that. There was no flesh left. But so, and he took photographs of their skeletons and of the side of the glacier. And, so it was a big comfort for the family, because they said, yes, this is, really what's happened, for sure, because he was up in that area, and they really took a lot of comfort in it. So I was really happy that we could do that for them. And he did that so nicely for them, and then he met them and phoned them and talked to them also.
So what are you proposing to do? I guess, if it all goes ahead and it's all agreed upon with Jock, and what would be the next steps, really?
Okay, I'm going to translate, because he's told me this wording and I didn't have a clue what it meant. So, yeah. Not that I didn't have a clue, but he is the first thing I believe he would like to check out is the assumption that he drowned in the Ganges, which I think is a definitely one thing that we have to think of. I mean, he walked out a gate 10 feet from the Ganges at 5 in the morning on a very, very hot day wearing shorts. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that he walked over to the Ganges and had a dip or, washed his face. And, if you would know what the Ganges is like at that time, very roaring and very slippery at the edge of it with the rocks. So he'd like to check that out because it's sort of the logical thing that he's, thinking that it would happen. And because, people do drown in the rainy season here in Rishikesh. Every year they drown. So I don't know if you want all the technical details, but he has a map of the catchments from here down to Muzaffarnagar, which is just before Delhi. And there's 3 catchment areas where they actually clean everything that was in the Ganges. Can I tell my dog to stop doing that?
Please, put it down, please.
Dolly!
We've got the barking dog as well, don't we?
Yeah, but this is India. Dogs bark in
don't
India. We have lots of street dogs in India. This is part of the deal. Huh? What are you guys doing today? You want to be on the TV? You want to be on the TV? Dolly photo under.
इनका जो सबका आ जाता है
I know, not at all.
Maybe because we did it all
on
before.
कर दिया
They want to take a photo of you guys interviewing you, which is a good idea. A nice idea. I think I said enough about, because in case we use this, the Canadian Embassy uses this, they're just going to take out 2 minutes or something. Did I say enough about how that happens to foreigners. I think I did.
I think so.
How if they want the drugs, they're available, and people to give them are available. Something that I didn't mention was just for instance, when you're in Brindaban, this is another place where East rubs up against West, Easterners and Westerners, and again, if you want drugs, when you go to these pawn shops, these little cigarette shops, they sell. Not heroin, they sell hashish in those little packages. I mean, they're hanging. And you go and you get a 5 rupee packet and it's hashish and you just pop it in your mouth. It's completely legal. Hang all little blue packets. And they say, oh, should we have the green one today or the blue one today? And I have some friends who unfortunately keep doing it. It's a little bit of an awkward situation for me. And they say to each other, well, let's have the blue one, let's have blue today, and stuff like that. A different mixture, huh?
We'll get these photos. Sorry.
Photo op. But they got to get, they want this. Where's the fuzzy thing? We want that on. It's by the way, this is the talk of Rishikesh.
Is it?
On your
what that is.
Last night you did it right, I think, huh?
Yes.
Oh, the neighbors are like, my prestige has gone up 100-fold because of that. Because they see that on TV, they have those in this thing.
Yeah.
So this is.
What I'm going to get you to do, I'm going to do a little bit of filming with you as well afterwards. We're about to finish the interview. And what I was going to do, because we were close, I was just going to, for example, maybe bring in the poster or whatever of Ryan and say, this is what we do on a normal, when I say a normal day, it may just be walking in and saying hello and did you find anything today? It's a very simple thing. Is that okay?
You're going to do that with him, huh? Okay.
Is that
Okay. They're going to एक छोटी सी सीन बनेंगी आपके लिए, आपके साथ वो सीन बनेंगे, तो रायन के पोस्टर को, तो और थोड़ा सा सीन बनेंगे कि जिस आदमी शायद आपके पास आ जाएगा, वो ढूंढ रहा है परिवार के लिए, तो उनको कोऑपरेशन देना ऐसे तो आप ही 2 शब्द भी बोल रहे जो थोड़ा इंग्लिश आती है ना, थोड़ा सा कोशिश करेंगे.
You mentioned about, listen, the possibility he was wearing shorts, it was a hot, the river's 10 metres away. Would you be able to say that again for us? Just
You didn't get it out?
Because we just lost our train of thought.
Okay. So you had asked me that what was Jaipal going to do, and I said that Jaipal is keen to really check that part of it out, the possibility that Ryan drowned. And the reason why it seems, for me it seems that's what we should do too, because that's a very simple scenario and very logical scenario. It's 24th of August, it's 35 degrees, and it's early in the morning, and he's got his swimming trunks on only, and he's gone out of a gate. We know that he went out of a gate, and we know that at that time the Ganges was like 15 feet away. And so he walks over to the Ganges, and he goes in for a bath, or he splashes his face or whatever. And the water is very, very fast there, particularly where he was, very, very fast, roaring by, with big white waves and, and eddies in the, eddies whirling around on the shore. That's another dangerous thing. The water looks very, it's coming in on a little eddy, coming in, and then you just say, okay, I can wash my face here, and then it just grabs you. And every year here in the rainy season, somebody drowns. And, virtually every year. Somebody drowns in this whole section, right from Uttarkashi down. Somebody or other drowns, and not only one person, but, a few people drown. And so, we have to think that that's very possible. Very possible. I had thought of suicide last night, and people had said that, maybe just jumped in. But in view of what he wrote, it doesn't seem likely at all. But, that he slipped, why not, and especially if he decided to actually sort of dunk himself in the morning. He didn't say he wasn't going to do that. He didn't say to anybody, well, I'm going somewhere, apparently. Nobody remembers him saying, well, I'm going to the tea shop or I'm going there. So he may have done that. So Jaipal is quite expert in doing that. So there's 3 catchment areas, and then there's these where all the barrages are. There's a sort of an area underneath that they make that people get, if they get caught, they get washed over on the side. So he needs to take 3 or 4 people and check these all out and go under the bridges and under the barrages and go to these. And the next lot, he's already been to one this morning, and he wants to check out the barrage, which is right here, right near us. So, you know, they can open up a side trap. You have to go down underneath and see it and all that. So he wants to do all that. And or he's saying that that's what the first thing he would do. And at Roorkee, you can close off 7 kilometers of the Ganges on a side channel. And they found a couple of bodies there. I happened to notice in the paper that a couple of years ago they were looking for 1 body, and they found 2 when they did that in the right in the channel. This is a man-made channel, but somehow they'd been caught in the stones there. So he feels very much moved to do that. The second thing, in view of what we're talking about, I would just say from my own side that you could do is go to Agra. You have time. And
the mental institution.
Yeah, the mental institution. You know, really, I'm touched by that now as we're speaking just now, that possibility's there. So, and the other thing that should happen, which I would then enter in and tell him, is that the possibility that he's with foreigners doing drugs. You know, moving around with foreigners, and that would be Kulu Manali and this Swiss cottage. That's the only places I know to start with, and see what happens when he does that. And then the third thing is Baba's, which is much more, you know, loose, tentative, you know, but still he has many ideas about that, by the way. He has many ideas about that. You see, Jock told me he didn't go to the Ganesh Gufa. Now this is an enormous cave where a lot of Babas and foreigners mix and stay in this cave, and that should be looked into. It's here again in Rishikesh. So he said he didn't actually go in that cave. So that should be done.
One of the things that
So I would be taking that to Jaipal, so you'd be doing that in the next few days.
one of the things that has amazed us all, and I think also frustrated, is you know, firstly that there are bodies that can just float down this river and no one seems to, when I say blink an eye, it seems to be not an uncommon occurrence. And I mean, how can a body be floating down and people just not notice it, if you know what I'm trying to say? But secondly, just in terms of just getting information has been, I think, a very frustrating thing for Jock and Aaron. Is that something that's common to foreigners who come here, that they just, the local knowledge is just underestimated, that, you know, yes, there could be a real possibility that people float by in the river and are not seen, and 2, that yeah, you know, in order to be polite and to not make people feel scared or something, they're not necessarily told the whole truth, just part of the truth. Is that something that, what would be your comment on that?
So you've asked 3 different things. So as far as bodies floating down the Ganges, well, yeah, that's a reality of the Ganges life. It happens. And I mean, I've seen bodies floating by, and I don't phone anybody up. So bodies do float by. And don't forget that it's people put bodies in the Ganges too. It isn't a case of someone falling in or being missing. They're dead, and people put them in the Ganges, for instance. This is the traditional way to dispose of the body of a Mahatma like me. So it would even be legal to put me in the Ganges because I'm a Mahatma. So it's going out of fashion because people are getting conscious that it pollutes the river and this and that, but nevertheless. And children. When a baby dies, it's very auspicious and very desirable to put the body in the Ganges of a baby. Or even a young animal that you're very attached to. You know, maybe a cow has a beloved cow of yours has a dead birth. You would put that calf in the Ganges as well. So when my dog died, I didn't leave her body in the Ganges, but I buried her right beside the Ganges. So she may have got washed in. So, you know, So that's it's very auspicious for your body to be put into the Ganges. So, it's not considered horrible. And in fact, anybody who would be drowned in the Ganges, by Indian culture, this would be quite an auspicious death. The idea is that we all have to die. And we can die bad deaths, and we can die good deaths. Death is an acceptable part of life in India. It's not something that's pushed out of life. So people are very conscious of and very easy with the idea of having good and bad deaths, which is something in the West, you see, because we're so much afraid of death, we never would like to think about good and bad deaths, because death is just bad, right? Scary and bad. But in Indian culture, death is not scary and bad. Death is natural. So they're very much concerned about how to die. Every individual in India is very much concerned about how they're going to die. So you see there's very auspicious deaths. And, for instance, sitting in meditation and dying while sitting in meditation would be considered the ultimate death. And people do it they can even do it voluntarily as well. Where they leave the Atma, that means your soul, leaves voluntarily through the top of your head. This is the ultimate death. So this is a very, very high death, one that would be honored after your death. You would become a saint for doing that. So, I don't have time in this interview to really fully put it out to you, but you see the Ganges is considered a living deity. She's not considered to be a river. She's a living deity. She's not a river. She's a living deity. So for someone to die in the arms of a deity is considered extremely auspicious. I myself would be thrilled to die like that. That would be the ultimate. It's certainly not right for me to run down and jump in the Ganges. That's suicide. So, Hinduism does not agree with suicide at all. So people don't fling themselves in the Ganges. But, if they might say on their dying deathbed, or they may say while they're alive, I've said it, that when I die, I want to be burnt right beside the Ganges and my ashes put into the Ganges, for instance. So, someone else would like to be put in the Ganges. So the family would do that. They would try. Now, slowly, with the population rising and thousands and millions of people dying by the Ganges every day, the authorities are gradually saying it's, in our district it's illegal, and they make the crematoriums, much more modern ways of disposing of bodies beside the Ganges, and then the ashes are put. You see, all the crematoriums in India that are near the Ganges, are put beside the Ganges. You're burnt, and then the ashes are put. So, you see, it's so auspicious that people send their ashes from all over the world to Hardwar, because the holiest part of the Ganges is at Benares and Hardwar, which is just 10 kilometers from here. And people send their ashes from all over the world to be submerged into the Ganges at Hardwar. And there's a special man at the post office, and every night he takes all these boxes of ashes that have been sent from all over the world to the post office, general delivery at Hardwar, and he puts them on his bicycle, and he takes them down to the Ganges in the evening, and there's a pundit there that does a little puja, and he puts these unknown boxes of ashes that have been sent from all over the world of Hindu people, and puts it into the Ganges. That's how much a person longs, who may live anywhere in the world, but he longs that his ashes be put in the Ganges. So, you see, it's not considered horrifying and horrible that there's the body going down the Ganges. It's considered that this is a very auspicious death that they had. A different attitude towards it. Okay? So, there's a lot more to be said about that, and a lot more to be said about the Ganges, but I'm trying to indicate to you so that you'll get a respectful idea of why that could happen, and not just go back and tell, dead bodies just float all over the place, nobody cares. If there's a dead body on the road, it's not considered auspicious. It'll be dealt with immediately. Because people die on the road in India too, because people live on the road, as you know. So they die on the road. And they're not left lying around to rot. There's somebody comes from the morgue right away. There's a whole In every city there's people who deal with that. And if somebody dies in your home, they're not just left around either. But in the Ganges is a different matter. Okay? So I really hope, because, I once wrote an article about bodies in the Ganges, and the magazine was furious. So I hope I've given you a taste of why that could be so. Why that Swami could say, I was meditating by the Ganges, and I saw a body of a foreigner go by, and I continued to meditate. You see why, whereas in the West it would be like, ring the alarm bells and the police and the lights and the helicopters and all that. But here, he would see that as not an alarming, horrible thing. He would see that as a death, an auspicious death. Huh?
You've explained it very well.
Well, I hope so. Just to giving you a taste, there's more to be said.
Absolutely, and I guess,
And you'll go, and the person's lying there dead on the floor, and the kids and everybody, and the babies are maybe crawling on them, and they're doing the last rites, and there's chanting going on and singing, and I might be invited to give a kirtan right beside the body, and I've done it. When a Guru Bhai of mine died, I sat right beside his body and sang to him, and to everybody else, right there. So,
unbelievable. I believe what you're saying.
yes. So, to the Indian, life, death is part of life. Really is. I'm not just speaking the words. So you can see. I'm hoping I'm giving you a taste, just a taste of why the enormous difference. This is not an aberration. This is not like a terrible thing to see a body going down the Ganges.
Just with the dealing with the local authorities and...
Yeah, okay. So now you asked me about that part. You asked me actually two things. One is the sort of efficiency of tracing people. I feel that if you were tracing somebody in your country, you would find exactly the same level of efficiency. In New York, I think there's 25,000 missing people every year, and they find like 1.001% of them in New York alone. And in Canada, there's 50,000 people. In Australia, there's going to be, I don't know, but it's going to be like more than 10,000 people go missing every year in Australia, and they find 1,000 of them, if that. And you hire private detectives who work day and night on it for on end, and they never find them. So I feel the efficiency level and the percentage level. It's frustrating for you because you're working on one particular case, but overall, it would be just about the same here as anywhere else in the world. Okay, that's also I found out. And the third thing is about dealing just with the public. Not talking about bureaucracy and officialdom, speaking about people. Yes, there would be an element in that. Again, the West meeting the East and not understanding each other, and so it doesn't happen. You don't get told the truth. It's not that people are going to lie to you, but as we were speaking about it so much, that people would be polite and they want to be positive, and they wouldn't want to tell you what they really thought. If, say, someone thought really, well, I think Ryan's dead, they wouldn't say that ever to you. That would be considered very impolite. And, I have to admit, it's a bit intimidating also to have, you all piled in there with cameras and I was intimidated. So you can imagine how just an ordinary Indian feels, or a low-level policeman feels, or a low-level official feels. So they feel intimidated, so they also don't speak up. You see, we were speaking about that too, that when you went to that temple, the very pujari that had taken care of that boy denied ever having seen any foreigner in the temple. When you piled into the temple, he changed his story because he got scared, and Jaipal said, "Don't be afraid. They don't mind. You just tell the truth and don't worry, and whatever the bad scenario is, you tell." Because he was worried because the boy was caught and acting crazy, and he didn't want, he wanted to be polite. He didn't want to get involved in that because he was a bit intimidated by it all. Whereas he was perfectly willing to tell him. That's what I had said to Jock too. If I go there, I'm going to find out what really happened if you all go there. And then what happened was that another fellow, who we've all agreed couldn't possibly know anything, swore that he saw him, that he was there. Because he had the other reverse effect at the whole drama of you all arriving. He did the reverse. He said, oh, yeah, I saw him. Yeah, absolutely. It's all human nature a bit, too, huh? Human nature at work.
I don't really know. I think everything has basically been covered. I always ask these fellas if there's something that they're wondering just about this. I mean, how many foreigners do go missing here? How common an occurrence is, Canadian or American or wherever, whoever? How often do you have to deal with this sort of stuff?
I'd hate to answer that question. I'd really prefer that to be an official answer. I mean, I've been in India 34 years, and I feel it's sort of fairly common when you take in all over India and stuff, fairly common. Not a rare incidence. And so often it's voluntary. There was an article in the paper a few months ago that some 10,000 Israelis per year stay back in India. They don't go back when their visa expires. And it's become so serious, it's actually become cognizant to the Israeli government, who have sought permission and received from the Indian government to have representatives of the Australian government at key places like Kulu Manali and Rishikesh and somewhere in Rajasthan to counsel Israelis to come back. So 10,000 a year, I couldn't believe it. My eyes popped out. That's just Israelis. So, then we have to say that it's fairly common.
Perhaps I will rephrase the question. I guess in all your experience, and I mean, you've been doing this, how long have you been doing this, looking for missing people? How many cases have you had to work on?
Well, not many. I've been doing this for the last 6 or 7 years maybe now. I was volunteered 7 years, and I've been involved in about 5 cases, so maybe 1 case a year, 1 time a year. And found a couple of people, So only 1 person out of that was dead, found dead. So otherwise, found a couple of people, and they were voluntarily staying back. This is, I think, we have to say these missing cases, the vast majority are people like the Israelis who want to stay here. No foul play or anything like that.
We've got a lovely dog.
Having a lovely scratch.
I'm
thinking back.
I think there isn't actually. Once you see it, you'll.
I think so. Listen, I guess can you? One thing I probably haven't asked you is just you mentioned before about the families. They never seem to believe it's drugs. I just was wondering if you could expand a little bit about on that with me, but just how they are when they come over here. I mean, I imagine they're all distraught, and
yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about that to me? How these families generally arrive here and leave?
Oh man, this is the heartbreaking part. This is the part I don't like at all. Just like being with Jock, it's so heartbreaking, isn't it? Because they're all the same. Jock is exactly how they are. They're obviously under horrendous emotional stress, and they've probably promised someone or someone's back home that they're just going to go over there and bring them back. I'm sure they leave like that. And then the reality starts unfolding in front of them, because they actually go to the places and they meet the people, and it starts to become a reality to them. I mean, their child's life is there. I mean, they meet people that knew them and saw them. And then they realize that it's not going to be easy, and they thought it was. And then, of course they must have, as we are having our doubts and thoughts, they also are too. And so, and yet, the heartbreaking thing is that they always try to be very polite and, you know, they try to be calm and sensitive and listen to everybody because they're desperate for to keep moving, to keep going on. So they're hoping every encounter will lead them to the truth, closer and closer. So they're very tentative and polite and kind and sweet, and yet you know inside their hearts must be breaking. So it's awful. And they're all like that. We had a big relationship with the brother of that epileptic boy, and he was like that as well. And you see, they can't allow themselves to break. So they're in very control too, very controlled. And so for me, it's very heartbreaking. My heart goes out to them, and I feel enormously compassionate. And you wish, like them, that you could just wave a wand and make it okay, you know. As far as the denial goes, yeah, every single family member I've ever talked to on the phone or ever here, they always say, which amazes me, that my child never took drugs and never would. Every single one of them, to a man. Not a single person has ever said to me, well, yeah, maybe. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that's a comment about, but that's, and you know, maybe that's a message in itself. Maybe that has a very deep significance, is that children in the West hide their drug habits. You know, I'm not saying that they're deep into heroin or anything, but whatever their habits is with drugs, that they hide it. And that nobody knows about it in the family. You know, maybe that is a big comment, because that's what I've told you as a fact. And it always really amazes me when I find the person, because I buy into the family, of course. I also want to think the best, so if that's what they feel. And then I meet the person and I think, wow, this is like completely different, you know. They're not at all like their parents said, you know, at all. At all, at all, at all. You know, one girl found, I mean, she's just a druggie, you know, and what happened was that the family actually got annoyed at the embassy, because I was phoning the embassy, I didn't deal directly, and they were annoyed, and they said, this is ridiculous, and this isn't true, and so her sister came over. And you know what that person did? Cleaned up their act, away from where they were, completely changed their clothes, moved into a hotel in Rishikesh, got a nice hotel, got a room for the sister, spent a week with the sister, didn't touch drugs, was like I guess, the way they were at home. Sister left feeling that everything was fine, and that, you know, the embassy and me, who she never met, fortunately, must have been completely off their rocker. And she left, and the girl just went back into where she was within hours. In front of me, I saw that. Back into wearing druggy clothes, hanging out with babas, and as we speak today, she was seen. Can you believe it? So, you know, the sister left totally unsuspecting, and the family thinks that she, you know, is living nice life here and following her religion, and but she's not. She's a druggie, and she's the one person I would say really is a druggie. You know, I mean, I myself had bad experiences with her lying and denying, and so she fooled me too for a little while. So, you know, that's an interesting statement itself. I realize that as I answer you, that's kind of interesting, huh? Everyone says, my child never takes drugs. But I don't know, when Jock said, well, 3 times, I thought, come on, man, you know. Somebody does it 3 times, you know. I don't, there's not much difference between 3 and 100, you know. Once and vomited and got sick, never did it again, I can believe. 3 times, you know.
Yeah. I was very, especially your first 2 songs, I think that you did last night. last night. I can't remember the names of them, but it was like 140 and stuff like
They're
that.
like prayers. They were just in Sanskrit, right?
Right, yeah, they were. And then you sang the English one, which I enjoyed as well. But yeah.
That's the one I'm in love with.
Is that right? Yeah. But
Did you listen to my CD?
I haven't. I don't have a
player.
CD player with me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but all of that other stuff. I would really like to use.
Yes, I'd be delighted.
And of course, I will email you and contact you what we've used and how much, and whatever you think is fair for copyright and stuff like that. Please let me know, and we'll send the payment straight over.
Okay. पहली दफा shooting हो रहा है. तो actually उनका यही अच्छा है कि जैसे वो सचमुच हो रहा है कि अभी वो वापस आ गए ना सर्च से, तो उनके अच्छा है कि वो ये दिखा देंगे कि in case को रायन को मिल रहा है तो वो दिखा देंगे कि क्योंकि in case हमको मिले है उसको सच हो सकता है ना क्या नहीं अब जयपाल तो करेंगे तो अगर मिल रहा है उसके सीन नहीं आएगा और अगर बाय चांस आप लोग मिलते हैं उसको तो हम ज़रूर करेंगे कि वो इस प्रकार से वो यहाँ रहती है और सर्च किया और मिल गया तो पिक्चर में आ ये हम करते हैं और नहीं मिलती है हमारे सर्च में सक्सेस नहीं होते नहीं
कोशिश तो पूरी करें
नहीं दिखा देंगे क्योंकि कोई तो अब आ रहे हैं ना कैसे तो ये आइडिया है कि जयपाल सर्च से वापस आ रहा है तो वैसे ड्रामा बने
Okay, give it away. Just chatting again.
तो अच्छा सो कहते हैं हम ऑफिस में भी चैटिंग
जी
वो आ रहे हैं देखो हरिओम
हाँ भाई
कहाँ से
क्या हुआ
कहाँ गया
BHL गए थे भादराबाद वहाँ पहला वो
इसको दिखा दिया
इसको भी दिखा दिया
ये दिखा दिया
ये भी दिखा दिया इसको भी दिखा दिया
अच्छा और ये भी
दिखा भी दिया एक उनको दे भी दिया
अच्छा दे दिया अच्छा
एक वहाँ लगा दिया
वो ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट वाला
हाँ ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट वाला ये उनका जो हम चेक करके आए बैराज
अच्छा
ये उसका ये था जो गंगा जी 3 पार्ट्स में है यहाँ से
अच्छा
एक तो चीला के लिए जाती है एक भादराबाद और एक उसके नदी में जाती है चंडी के
अच्छा चंडी देवी के पुल के
हाँ पुल के नीचे
अच्छा
ये तो वो 2 टन है जो एक
ये चंडी देवी कहाँ है
चंडा देवी वाला ये है पुल
अच्छा
जो ये नीचे सीधा निकलेगा जाके रुड़की मुजफ्फरनगर के बीच में जो सेकंड चेक है
अच्छा
फर्स्ट ये सेकंड ये हम चेक करके आए भादराबाद वाला
अच्छा
ये हम चेक करके आए इसमें कोई अंग्रेजी की बॉडी नहीं थी
मैंने आपसे भूल गया पूछा नहीं कि इसका फोटो छुपा देते हैं बॉडी का
नहीं बॉडी का
रख लेते
हैं वो वही बॉडी रखते हैं जिसकी पहले कंप्लेंट जाती है वहाँ जिस बॉडी की कंप्लेंट
है से
हाँ जिसकी ऑलरेडी पहले शिकायत होती है अगर और बॉडी आती है
तो उसको
वो
आगे जाने देते हैं
सप्लाई कर देते हैं आगे
शटर से बाहर निकाल देते हैं
शटर से बाहर निकाल देते हैं
अच्छा तो फिर क्या होती है
वो आगे चली जाती है
चले जा और अब उन्होंने कहा कि 80% बॉडी तो वही जाती है
हमारी यहाँ से जो जाएगी ना वो इसमें नहीं जाएगी
20% है कि इसमें जा सकती है नीचे तो वो उन्होंने कहा कि यहाँ से है 45 किलोमीटर करीब रिवर
किलोमीटर है
हाँ,
और इसका पानी भी बंद कर सकती है
जी
क्योंकि बाई चांस मैंने पढ़ लिया पिछले साल तो टोटली बंद किया सूख गया कनाल 5-6 किलोमीटर यहाँ बहुत मुश्किल है आपको बहुत पैसा जमा देना
वहाँ
वो करता है
जो चिलम बाबा है उसके यहाँ भी गए थे श्यामपुर में भोले बाबा वहाँ गए थे वहाँ 5-6 लोग पी रहे थे सुल्फा उनके यहाँ आए हुए थे उनको भी हमने फोटो पे दे दिया अगर वो ड्रग्स करता है लेता है तो हो सकता है वहाँ जाए इससे पहले उन्होंने कहा कि बहुत लोग आते हैं हम बहुत विदेशी मेरे पास आते हैं लेकिन हम ध्यान नहीं देते क्योंकि बहुत आते हैं ना लेकिन उन्होंने कहा दोबारा अगर आएगा तो हम उसको बता देंगे उनको हमने
अभी तक उन्हें फोटो नहीं
फोटो दिखाया उसने पहचान नहीं है
एक
codes up here.
Don't know if he's wanting us to go away or...
No, no.
100 money.
No, you don't want money?
100.
No?
No bhakti, Indian bhakti. No money.
No money?
100 money, 50.
50-50 rupee. 50 rupee?
50 rupees, 50 rupees.
Ha.
100 के ना दोनों तो पूरा आगे बढ़ा था। और क्या इंडियन के यार लेके दुनिया में पैसा कमाता है हम लोग से। हम लोग को सॉरी हम लोग को चुतिया समझ रहा है। चाहूँ तो इसको भगा सकता हूँ मगर क्या अपने ऊपर होता हम साथ में किसी का हाथ उठा के ले सकते हैं। अंग्रेज लोग ऐसा नहीं हम लोग पुलिस पीछे मेरी पड़ता है।
that. Yeah. I doubt with a. I'm gonna disconnect.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, man.